The shot was impossible. 3,247 meters. Howling wind, sub-zero darkness. Every calculation said failure. But the woman they'd mocked for missing at 300 meters, the one they called rookie, the one they'd laughed off the range that morning, lay motionless on the frozen ridge, finger steady, breath controlled. 4 seconds of silence. Then a metallic echo rolled back through the mountains. Confirmed, impact. The worst shooter in the unit had just done what veterans couldn't. But here's what they didn't know yet. She hadn't been failing. She'd been testing them. And what she discovered would shatter everything they believed about who they were. This story will take you deep into the coldest battlefield you've never seen, where pride meets precision, and assumptions cost more than bullets. Stay with me until the very end. Drop a like, and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. You won't believe where this goes. The wind arrived first. It came screaming across the valley in waves, raw, vicious, the kind of cold that found every gap in your gear and reminded you that nature didn't care about your rank, your training, or how long you'd survived. It carved through the compound like a living thing, rattling the corrugated metal roofing, shaking the windows in their frames, turning breath into fog that hung in the air for seconds before vanishing. Forward operating base Sentinel. Elevation, 8,200 feet. Temperature, 12 degrees Fahrenheit and dropping. A collection of prefab structures clinging to the side of a mountain in a country whose name appeared on maps, but whose wars rarely made headlines anymore. This wasn't the kind of posting that got you promoted. It was the kind that tested whether you deserved to stay in the fight at all. Inside the northern barracks, 11 soldiers moved through their morning routines with the efficiency of people who'd done this 1,000 times. Boots laced tight, gear checked twice, coffee black and scalding, because out here, warmth was tactical. Corporal Drake Hollis sat near the window, cleaning his rifle with the kind of attention most people reserve for religion. 31 years old, 7 years in service. 2 deployments that had gone loud, one that never made the reports. He had the look of someone who'd earned his scars the hard way. Lean, hard-edged, with eyes that tracked movement even when he wasn't trying. His hands moved across the weapon automatically, muscle memory so deep he could have done it blindfolded. "Wind's picking up," someone muttered from across the room. Hollis didn't look up. Always does. "Range is gonna be hell. Range is always hell." He snapped the bolt carrier group back into place with a satisfying click. "That's the point." Sergeant Nolan Pierce stood near the door, arms crossed, watching the valley through the frost-crusted window. 38. 12 years in. A sniper instructor before this posting, back when he still believed training could prepare you for everything. He'd learned better. Out here, theory met reality, and reality didn't grade on a curve. "New arrivals supposed to hit today," Pierce said, voice low. Hollis finally looked up. "Replacement for Chen?" "Yeah. About damn time. We've been short a spotter for 6 weeks." "Might not be a spotter." That got Hollis's attention. "What then?" Pierce shrugged. "Orders didn't say. Just said personnel reassignment. Could be anything." "Great." Hollis went back to his rifle. "Love surprises." Across the room, Private First Class Marcus Webb was doing push-ups, his 4th set of the morning. 23 years old, built like he'd grown up carrying things heavier than he should have, with the kind of relentless energy that either burned out fast or turned into something dangerous. He hit 50 and kept going. "You're making the rest of us look bad," someone called out. Webb grinned, breath coming hard. "That's the idea. Save it for the range, hero. Can't. Gotta be ready when..." The door opened. Cold air rushed in like a slap, and with it came a figure so small, so slight, that for a second everyone thought it was a mistake. A kid. A civilian. Someone lost. Then they saw the uniform. She was maybe 5'4", thin frame drowning in cold weather gear that looked 2 sizes too big, dark hair pulled back tight, face pale from the altitude or the cold or both. She had a duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a rifle case in the other hand, and she moved with the kind of careful deliberation that came from knowing everyone was staring. The room went quiet. Not the good kind of quiet, the evaluating kind, the kind that turned people into specimens under glass. Hollis set his rifle down slowly. Webb stopped mid-push-up. Pierce's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. She stood there, just inside the door, letting it swing shut behind her. Didn't say anything. Didn't introduce herself. Just scanned the room once, quick, methodical, then moved toward the nearest empty bunk. "You lost?" Hollis's voice cut through the silence, casual but edged. She set her duffel down. "No. This is the advanced tactical unit." "I know. We don't usually get—" He paused, picking his words. "Transfers this late in rotation." She unzipped the rifle case, not looking at him. "I'm aware." Webb stood up, wiping his hands on his pants. "What's your name?" "Voss." "First name?" A pause, then, "Lena." "Where you coming from, Lena?" "Stateside." "Stateside." Hollis leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. "You got experience in mountain ops?" "Some." "Cold weather combat?" "Enough." "Sniper qualified?" She pulled her rifle from the case, a standard issue M24, worn but well maintained. "Yes." "How long you been shooting?" "Long enough." Hollis exchanged a glance with Webb, the kind of look that said, "This is going to be fun." "Long enough," Hollis repeated, like he was tasting the words. "That's real specific. You always this chatty, or is today special?" Lena didn't answer, just started field stripping her rifle with movements that were slow, deliberate, almost cautious. Pierce stepped forward. "You get briefed on the range protocols?" "Yes, Sergeant." "Good. We run live fire drills at 0800, full cold bore qualification. You'll shoot with the rest of the unit." "Understood." "Hollis will walk you through the course layout." Hollis pushed off the wall. "Lucky me." Pierce shot him a look. "Make it smooth, Corporal." "Always do, Wata." The range sat on the eastern slope, a quarter-mile from the main compound. 10 shooting positions carved into the hillside, each one reinforced with sandbags and camouflage netting that did nothing against the wind. Targets downrange at 300, 500, 800 meters. Steel plates that rang like bells when you hit them, silent when you missed. By the time 0800 rolled around, the entire unit had gathered. 11 soldiers who'd been through enough firefights to know what mattered and what didn't. They stood in loose formation, rifles ready, watching as Lena Voss moved toward the first shooting position. She looked even smaller out here. The wind caught her jacket, making it billow. She had to plant her feet wide just to stay stable. "Jesus," someone muttered. "She gonna blow away?" Quiet laughter rippled through the group. Pierce raised a hand. "Settle." Lena knelt at the first position, setting up her rifle with the same careful slowness she'd shown in the barracks. She checked the scope, adjusted the bipod, pulled a small worn notebook from her pocket, and flipped through pages covered in cramped handwriting. Hollis stood a few feet behind her, arms crossed. "What's the notebook for?" "Notes." "On what?" "Conditions, patterns." "You taking notes on the wind now?" She didn't answer, just kept reading, lips moving slightly as if she were running calculations in her head. "Target's 300 meters, Hollis said. "Wind's quartering from the right, maybe 10 miles per hour. Cold bore, so your first shot's gonna run low. Dial up 1/2 mil. Hold right edge. Should be an easy hit." Lena closed the notebook, tucked it away. Got into position, prone, cheek pressed to the stock, body aligned with the rifle in a way that looked textbook but felt off. Like she was trying to remember how, instead of just doing it. "On your time," Pierce called out. She settled, breathed. Her finger curled around the trigger. The shot cracked across the valley. Downrange, the steel plate sat silent. Miss Hollis exhaled slowly. "Low and left. Told you. Dial up." Lena adjusted her scope. 1 click. 2. Second shot. Miss again. Closer, but still off. "Wind's pushing you," Hollis said. "You gotta lead it more." 3rd shot. Another miss. Now the laughter started. Low, barely audible, but there. The kind of sound that spreads like infection. "Come on, rookie," Webb called out. "It's 300. My grandmother could hit 300. More laughter. Louder this time. Lena didn't react. Just pulled the notebook out again, wrote something down in quick, precise strokes, then got back into position. 4th shot, 5th, 6th. All misses. By the seventh shot, the laughter had turned sharp. Hollis shook his head, stepping back. All right, that's enough. Next shooter. Lena didn't move. I said next shooter. She stayed prone, staring downrange through her scope. Voss, you're done. Slowly, she stood, cleared her rifle, stepped back without a word. As she walked past the group, someone said, loud enough for her to hear, "Guess qualified means something different stateside." She kept walking. One. The rest of the unit cycled through. Most of them hit their targets. Clean, efficient, professional. A few struggled with the wind, but they adjusted, adapted, put rounds on steel. This was what they did. This was who they were. Lena stood at the back watching, not sulking, not frustrated, just watching. Her hands didn't shake, her expression didn't change. She pulled out the notebook occasionally, wrote something down, then put it away. Pierce noticed. He didn't say anything, but he noticed. When the last shooter finished, Hollis walked over to where Lena stood. He didn't look angry. If anything, he looked disappointed, the way you'd look at a tool that didn't work the way it was supposed to. "Look," he said, voice lower now, almost gentle. "I don't know what your qualifications looked like back home, but out here we can't carry dead weight. You understand that?" Lena met his eyes, didn't blink. "Yes, but if you can't hit at 300, you're not ready for the real work." "I understand. Maybe you should spend some time with the basics. Work your way back up." A pause, then, "Maybe." Hollis sighed. "I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm trying to keep people alive. That includes you." "I know." He waited for her to say more. She didn't. "All right," he said finally. "Get some chow. Rest up. We'll try again tomorrow." She nodded once and walked away, boots crunching on the frozen ground. Webb sidled up next to Hollis, watching her go. "Think she's gonna make it?" Hollis shrugged. "Doubt it." She seemed, I don't know, calm, like she didn't care. Some people freeze under pressure, others just don't have it. Hollis turned back toward the barracks. Either way, she's not what we need. That night, the mess hall was louder than usual. Someone had scrounged up a bottle of whiskey, contraband, but no one cared. And the mood had loosened. Soldiers sat around battered tables, swapping stories, razzing each other, burning off the tension that came with living on the edge of nowhere. Lena sat alone in the corner, eating methodically, eyes down. "Hey, rookie," Webb called out from across the room. "You gonna try the range again tomorrow, or are you planning to stay a spectator?" A few people laughed. Not mean, exactly, just casual. The way you'd laugh at a bad joke. Lena didn't look up, just kept eating. "Maybe she's got bad eyes," someone else said. "Can't see the targets? Or maybe she lied about being qualified." "Nah, man, she's just rusty. Give her time." "We don't have time." Hollis leaned back in his chair, watching the exchange with the detached interest of someone who'd seen this play out before. New arrivals either proved themselves fast or got shuffled somewhere else. That was the way of it. No hard feelings, just reality. But something nagged at him. The way she'd held the rifle, the way she'd written in that notebook after every shot. The way her hands hadn't shaken, not once, even when the mockery got loud. Most people who couldn't shoot, really couldn't shoot, showed it in their body language. Frustration, embarrassment, overcompensation. Lena had shown none of that. She'd just observed, adjusted, moved on, like she was running an experiment. Hollis shook his head. He was reading too much into it. People froze up under pressure all the time, especially people who weren't used to mountain conditions, high altitude, extreme cold. She'd probably been a decent shooter back at sea level, indoors, no wind. Out here? Different story. Still, he watched her stand, clear her tray, and walk out without saying a word to anyone. Quiet. Pierce found her an hour later in the equipment shed, sitting on an ammo crate, notebook open on her lap. The single overhead bulb cast harsh shadows across her face. "You settling in all right?" he asked. She looked up. "Yes, Sergeant." "Rough day on the range." It was. Pierce stepped inside, letting the door swing shut behind him. "You want to talk about it?" "Not particularly. Sometimes helps." She closed the notebook. "I missed my shots. Not much to talk about." "You didn't seem bothered." "Would it help if I was?" Pierce almost smiled. Fair point. He leaned against a stack of crates. Hollis can come across hard, but he's not wrong. We need people who can perform under pressure. Lives depend on it. I know. Then you also know that if you can't hit at 300, you're not going on missions. I know that too. So what's the plan? Just gonna keep missing until someone ships you out? Lena looked at him, really looked, not the glancing automatic eye contact most people gave. Her gaze was steady, unblinking, like she was measuring something. I'll figure it out, she said. You've got maybe 2 more chances. After that, Command's gonna reassign you. Understood. Pierce waited. Most people would have made excuses by now, blamed the wind, the altitude, the cold, asked for advice, for help, for another weapon. Lena did none of that. You always this quiet? He asked. When I need to be. And when don't you need to be? A flicker of something, amusement maybe, crossed her face. I'll let you know. Pierce straightened. Get some rest, Voss. Tomorrow's another day. Yes, Sergeant. He left her there, sitting in the dim light, notebook open again, pen moving across the page in quick, precise strokes. 0300 hours. The compound was silent except for the wind, which never stopped. In the operations center, a cramped room filled with radios, maps, and the faint glow of computer screens, 3 officers stood around a table, staring at a satellite image. Major Elena Reyes, unit commander. 42 years old, career officer. The kind of leader who'd earned loyalty the hard way, by being right more often than not, and owning it when she wasn't. Confirmed? She asked. Captain John Merrick, intelligence liaison, nodded. Signal intercept matched the pattern. There's an observer in the southern ridge, high value, coordinating insurgent movements across 3 valleys. How high value? High enough that taking him out collapses their entire network in this sector. Distance? Merrick pulled up a second image, topographical, marked with coordinates. 3,247 meters. The third officer, Lieutenant Sarah Chen, whistled low. That's ambitious. That's damn near impossible, Reyes said. What's the wind profile? Variable. Gusting 15 to 30 knots. Temperature inversion at 2,000 meters. Coriolis effect, spin drift, elevation differential. Merrick shook his head. Even our best would be looking at maybe 5% success rate. Who's our best? Pierce. Maybe Hollis on a perfect day. Reyes stared at the map. And if we miss? Observer relocates. We lose him. Network stays intact. And if we don't take the shot at all? Same result. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, assemble the unit. 600 briefing. Let's see who's willing to try. 0557 hours. The briefing room was packed. 11 soldiers sat in rows of folding chairs, steam rising from coffee cups, fatigue etched into faces. They'd been pulled from sleep with the kind of urgency that meant something real was happening. Reyes stood at the front, arms crossed, waiting for the last stragglers to settle. Listen up, she said. No preamble, no easing into it. We have a target. High-value enemy observer, Southern Ridge, grid November 7-4 Alpha. Intel says he's coordinating insurgent activity across the entire region. Take him out. We cripple their operations for months. She clicked a remote. The projector hummed to life, showing the satellite image. Distance, 3,247 meters. The room went dead silent. Someone finally spoke. Ma'am, that's... I know what it is, Reyes cut in. I also know what it means if we don't try. This is a volunteer op. No one's getting ordered into this. But if we have someone who can make the shot, I need to know now. No one moved. Hollis stared at the screen, jaw tight. 3,247 meters. He'd made shots at 2,000, even pushed 2,400 once in perfect conditions with a spotter who knew his rhythm. But over 3,000? In mountain wind? That wasn't marksmanship. That was prayer with a scope. Pierce leaned forward, elbows on his knees, studying the image. Temperature inversion, variable wind, extreme elevation. Every factor screamed failure, and yet, what's the timeline, Chet? He asked. Observer's active for another 72 hours, Merrick said. After that he moves. We lose the window. So we've got 3 days. Less. Mission needs to happen at night. Limits visibility, limits counter-response. That gives us tomorrow night. One shot. Webb raised a hand. What's the backup plan if we miss? There isn't one. The weight of that settled over the room like snow. Hollis exhaled slowly. I'll take it. Reyes looked at him. You sure? No, but I've got the best chance. You'll need a spotter. Pierce nodded once. Yeah. Reyes scanned the room. Anyone else? Silence. Then from the back, a voice, quiet, calm, almost conversational. I'll take the shot. Every head turned. Lena Voss sat in the last row, hands folded in her lap, expression unreadable. For a second, no one reacted. Then the laughter started. Not loud, just disbelieving. The kind of laugh you make when someone says something so absurd it doesn't even register as serious. Rookie, Webb said, grinning, you can't hit at 300. What makes you think? I'll take the shot, Lena repeated. Louder this time, clearer. Hollis turned in his chair. Voss, no offense, but you're not qualified for this. I am. You missed every target yesterday. I know. So why would we let you take a shot that even I'm not confident about? She met his eyes. Because I can make it. The room erupted. Are you serious? She's delusional. This isn't a training exercise, rookie. This is real. Reyes raised a hand. The noise died down. Voss? Explain. Lena stood, pulled out her notebook, walked to the front of the room and set it on the table. The pages were covered in dense handwriting, numbers, diagrams, equations, wind calculations, trajectory curves. I need atmospheric data, she said. Temperature, humidity, pressure at target elevation. Terrain gradient profile. Coriolis correction for this latitude. Ammunition ballistic coefficient. Rifle twist rate. Merrick blinked. You want all of that? Yes. Why? Because at that distance, every variable matters. Temperature affects air density. Humidity changes drag. Terrain gradient shifts line of sight versus actual range. Coriolis drift at this latitude is non-negligible. Spin drift compounds over distance. I need to account for everything. Pierce leaned forward. You know how to calculate all that? Yes. By hand? If I have to. Hollis stood up, shaking his head. This is insane. Ma'am, with respect, she can't even hit a steel plate at 300 meters. Now she wants to take a 3,200-meter shot based on, what, math? Lena turned to him. The shots yesterday weren't about hitting. They were about learning. Learning what? How your rifles perform. How the wind moves through this valley. How altitude affects trajectory. How your scopes are zeroed. How you shoot. The room went quiet again. Different this time. Uncertain. Hollis's voice dropped. What are you talking about? I wasn't trying to hit the targets, Lena said. I was mapping the conditions. Every miss gave me data. Wind direction, speed variation, thermal drift. Your rifle's zero is 0.3 mils high at 500. Webb's is 0.2 low. The wind in this valley doesn't gust randomly. It pulses every 18 to 22 seconds. Temperature inversion starts at 2,100 meters, not 2,000. She tapped the notebook. I wasn't failing. I was studying. Dead silence. Pierce stared at her, then at the notebook, then back at her. Reyes stepped forward. You're saying you missed on purpose? Yes, ma'am. Why? Because I needed to understand the environment before I could make a real shot. And now you understand it? Enough! Hollis laughed, sharp, humorless. This is crazy. You expect us to believe you were running some kind of experiment? That you let us mock you just to gather data? Lena didn't flinch. Yes. Bullshit. Corporal, Reyes started. No, ma'am. This is bullshit. She shows up, can't hit anything, and now she's saying it was all part of some master plan? That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Lena's voice stayed level. You don't have to believe me, but I can make the shot. Based on what? A notebook full of scribbles? Based on 11 years of training you don't know about. The room froze. Reyes's eyes narrowed. 11 years? Lena hesitated, then, I'm not supposed to disclose that yet. Disclose what? Another pause, longer this time. My background. Explain. Now. Lena glanced at Merrick. He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. She turned back to Reyes. I'm not a standard transfer. I'm part of a classified long-range precision program. My assignment here was observational. Assess unit capabilities, operational readiness, tactical integration under high-stress conditions. Hollis's face went pale. You're telling me this was a test? Partially? Partially? The mission is real, but my presence here was also about evaluation. Webb stood up. So all that, yesterday, the range, the missing, that was fake? No, the misses were real, but they were intentional. Why? Lena looked around the room. Because I needed to see how you responded to failure, to pressure, to someone you perceived as weak. She paused. And because I needed to learn this environment before I could operate in it. Hollis took a step forward. So you let us laugh at you. You let us think you were incompetent, just so you could, what, write a report? So I could do my job. Your job is to lie to us? My job is to assess whether this unit can handle extreme operations. By pretending to be a screw-up? By observing how you treat screw-ups. The words hung in the air like smoke. Reyes crossed her arms. And your conclusion? Lena's expression didn't change. Still forming it. Can you make the shot or not? Yes, ma'am. You're certain? As certain as anyone can be at that distance. Reyes looked at Pierce. Your read? Pierce studied Lena for a long moment. The notebook. The calm. The way she'd moved yesterday, not nervous, not frustrated, just methodical. I think, he said slowly, she's either the best actress I've ever seen, or she's telling the truth. Which one? I don't know, but I know she's not afraid. Reyes nodded, then turned to Hollis. Corporal? Hollis stared at Lena, jaw clenched. I think this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's not an answer. My answer is no. We don't let someone who can't hit at 300 take a shot at 3,200. I don't care what program she's from. Noted. Reyes looked back at Lena. You'll have to prove it. How? Range. This afternoon. 800 meters. 10 shots. You miss more than 2. You're out. Lena nodded. Understood. And if you pass, you're taking the mission, with Pierce as your spotter. Yes, ma'am. Reyes glanced at Hollis. You'll observe. If she fails, you take the shot tomorrow night. Hollis's expression was stone. Yes, ma'am. Dismissed. The afternoon range session was different. No jokes, no laughter, just cold, focused silence. Lena set up at the 800-meter line, rifle steady, notebook closed, and tucked away. The wind was brutal, gusting hard enough to rattle the netting, kicking up snow in sheets that blurred the downrange targets. Pierce stood behind her, rangefinder in hand. Winds 20 knots, gusting to 30, quartering right. Temperatures dropped 3 degrees since this morning. Lena adjusted her scope. Slow. Deliberate. Call it, she said. Target 1. 800 meters. Wind right to left. Call it 2 mils. She settled into position. Exhaled halfway. Held. The shot cracked. Downrange, the steel plate rang. Hit. No one spoke. Target 2, Pierce called. Same range, wind shifting, now left to right. 1.5 mils. She adjusted. Fired. Another hit. By the 5th shot, Hollis had stopped watching the targets. He was watching her. The way she didn't rush. The way her breathing stayed even. The way she seemed to wait for something, not forcing the shot, just ready. 6th shot. Hit. 7th. Hit. 8th. The wind gusted hard. Snow whipped across her scope. She held position, finger off the trigger. Seconds passed. Then the gust faded just slightly, and she fired. Hit. Webb exhaled. Jesus. 9th shot. Hit. 10th shot. Hit. 10 for 10. Lena cleared her rifle, stood, and turned to face the group. Hollis stared at her. How? I told you I was studying. No one shoots like that after missing at 300. I didn't miss at 300 because I couldn't hit. I missed because I was learning. That's He stopped, shook his head. I don't believe you. You don't have to. Reyes stepped forward. You're cleared for the mission. 0300 departure. Pierce, you're her spotter. Hollis, you're backup in case of abort. Everyone else, standard support protocol. Lena nodded. Yes, ma'am. As the group dispersed, Pierce walked up beside her. You really did that on purpose? Yesterday? She glanced at him. Would you have let me near this mission if I'd hit everything first try? Probably not. Then yes, I did it on purpose. Why? Because I needed to see this place the way it is, not the way I thought it would be. She paused. And I needed to see all of you the same way. And? A faint smile. You're better than you think, and worse than you believe. She walked away before he could respond. That night, the barracks was quieter than usual. Lena sat on her bunk, cleaning her rifle, movements precise and unhurried. Around her, the others moved through their routines, but the energy had shifted. No more jokes, no more laughter, just questions no one wanted to ask out loud. Hollis sat across from her, watching. Finally, he spoke. You made us look like idiots. Lena didn't look up. No, you did that yourselves. By laughing at you? By assuming. He was quiet for a moment. What were you assessing, really? How you handle unknowns, how you treat people you perceive as weak, how you respond to failure, yours and others. And? She set down her cleaning rod, met his eyes. You're good soldiers, but you rely too much on what you think you know. You see someone struggle, and you write them off. You see someone succeed, and you assume they'll keep succeeding. You don't ask why. That's survival. We don't have time to babysit. I'm not talking about babysitting. I'm talking about observation. She picked up the rifle again. You saw me miss yesterday, and you decided I was incompetent. You didn't ask if there was another reason. You didn't consider that I might be testing the wind, mapping the conditions, learning the rifles. You just assumed. Hollis's jaw tightened. Because that's what it looked like. Exactly. And that's the problem. What problem? You trust your eyes too much. Out here, your eyes lie. She stood, slinging the rifle over her shoulder. Tomorrow night, if I make that shot, it won't be because I'm special. It'll be because I took the time to learn what you already thought you knew. She walked past him, footsteps fading into the corridor. Hollis sat there staring at the empty bunk across from him. Behind him, Webb said quietly, She's right, you know. About what? We wrote her off, all of us, soon as she missed that first shot. Because she kept missing. Yeah, and now she's 10 for 10 at 800, and we're sitting here wondering how we got played. Hollis didn't answer. 0245 hours. The compound was dark, silent except for the wind. In the equipment room, Lena and Pierce geared up. Cold weather camo, night vision capable scopes. Ammunition specially selected, match grade, weighed, measured, perfect. Reyes stood in the doorway. Conditions are worse than expected. Winds gusting to 35 knots, temperatures dropping, visibility's marginal. Understood, Lena said. You can abort. Hollis is ready to step in. I can make the shot. I know you can. I'm asking if you should. Lena looked at her. If I thought I'd fail, I wouldn't be here. Reyes nodded slowly. Then make it count. Outside, 3 vehicles idled in the darkness, armored, engines rumbling low. Hollis stood by the lead truck, rifle slung, expression unreadable. As Lena approached, he stepped into her path. If you miss, he said quietly, people die. You understand that? I do. This isn't a test anymore. This is real. I know. He studied her face. You're not scared. No. Why not? Because I've done the math. She adjusted her pack. And the math works. Hollis stepped aside. Then prove it. She climbed into the truck. As the convoy pulled out, disappearing into the frozen darkness, Pierce sat beside her, checking gear. You really think you can make this? He asked. Lena stared out the window at the mountains, vast, black, endless. Ask me in 4 hours. The trucks drove into the night, headlights cutting through the snow, carrying them toward a ridgeline where the impossible waited. And somewhere in the darkness, 3,247 meters away, a target had no idea what was coming. The road disappeared 2 miles out. Not literally. It was still there, buried under 6 inches of fresh snow that the headlights turned into a shifting white void. The trucks crawled forward at 15 miles per hour, tires crunching, engines grinding against the incline. Outside, the temperature had dropped to 6 degrees. Inside, breath fogged the windows faster than the defrost could clear them. Lena sat in the back of the lead vehicle, rifle case between her knees, watching the darkness slide past. Pierce was beside her, reviewing maps on a ruggedized tablet. Hollis sat across from them, silent, jaw tight, staring at nothing. The driver, Specialist Raines, 26, from somewhere in Texas, glanced in the rear view. "Road's gonna get worse before it gets better." "How much worse?" Pierce asked. "Switchbacks start in about 10 minutes. After that, it's all loose gravel and ice. We'll be lucky to hit 10 miles per hour." "How far to the insertion point?" 12 miles. "At this rate? Hour and a half. Maybe 2 if the weather turns." Pierce checked his watch. 03:02. They needed to be in position by 0500 to have any chance of making the shot before dawn. That left them maybe 30 minutes of buffer. Not much. Not enough if anything went wrong. He glanced at Lena. She hadn't moved since they'd left the compound. Just sat there, hands folded, eyes half closed like she was resting. But her breathing was too controlled for sleep. She was doing something, calculating, rehearsing, running through scenarios in her head. "You good?" he asked quietly. She opened her eyes. "Yeah." "Need anything?" "Not yet." Hollis shifted in his seat. "You always this calm before a mission?" "Usually. Even when the odds are this bad?" "Especially then." "Why?" "Because panic doesn't improve accuracy." Hollis almost smiled. "Fair point." He leaned back, arms crossed. "You really been doing this for 11 years?" "Yes." "And we've never heard of you." "That's the idea." "What kind of program stays classified for that long?" Lena glanced at Pierce. He gave a small nod, permission to speak within limits. "The kind that handles problems no one wants on record," she said. "What kind of problems?" "The impossible kind." Hollis waited for more. She didn't offer it. "You always this cryptic?" he asked. "Or is it part of the job?" "Both." The truck hit a pothole. Everyone jolted forward. Raines cursed, corrected, kept driving. Pierce pulled up a topographical overlay on the tablet. "Insertion points here." He tapped the screen. "Ridge overlook, elevation 9,400 feet. From there, it's a half-mile hike to the firing position. Terrain's exposed. No cover once we're out of the tree line." "Wind?" Lena asked. "Variable. Could be 20 knots. Could be 40. "Temperature?" "Probably below 0 by the time we're in position." She nodded, absorbing it. "How long do we have to take the shot?" "Window opens at 0430. Target's most active between 0430 and 0500. After that, he relocates. We miss that window. Mission's over." "So one shot. One chance." "Yeah." Hollis leaned forward. "And if you miss?" Lena looked at him. "Then you were right, and I shouldn't be here." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." The truck climbed higher. The switchback started. Tight, narrow turns that forced Raines to slow even further. The wheels skidded twice, caught, kept going. Outside, the wind picked up, hammering the vehicle in gusts that made the whole frame shudder. "Jesus," Raines muttered. "This is insane." Pierce checked the GPS. "How far?" 8 miles. "Time?" "Oh, 3:27. They were falling behind. By the time they reached the insertion point, it was 03:52. 23 minutes past schedule. The truck stopped in a clearing surrounded by skeletal trees that creaked and swayed in the wind. The convoy killed the engines. For a moment, the only sound was the wind, low, steady, relentless. Lena stepped out first. The cold hit her like a wall. She pulled her balaclava up, adjusted her goggles, shouldered her rifle case. Pierce followed, already scanning the terrain with night vision binoculars. Hollis jumped down, boots crunching in the snow. He looked at the ridgeline ahead, a jagged black silhouette against the slightly less black sky, and shook his head. "Half a mile," he said. "Uphill. In this wind, We'll be lucky to make it in 30 minutes. Then we move fast, Pierce said. You ever try moving fast at 9,000 feet? Yeah, it sucks. Let's go. The team assembled quickly, Lena and Pierce up front, Hollis and two others, Webb and a rifleman named Torres, behind them. The rest stayed with the vehicles, securing the perimeter, monitoring radio traffic. Pierce checked his watch. We've got 38 minutes to get in position and take the shot. Everyone clear? Nods all around. Then move. They started hiking. The terrain was worse than the map suggested. Loose rock hidden under snow, ice patches that sent boots sliding. The wind came in waves, strong enough to push you off balance if you weren't braced. Altitude made every breath feel thin, incomplete. Lena's lungs burned after the first 100 yards. She kept moving, one foot in front of the other, rifle case strapped across her back, eyes on Pierce's silhouette ahead. Behind her, she could hear Hollis breathing hard, Webb cursing under his breath. Torres silent, steady, keeping pace. 15 minutes in, they hit the tree line. The forest offered some shelter from the wind, but the snow was deeper here, knee-high in places. They had to wade through it, pushing forward, burning energy they'd need later. Pierce stopped at a fallen log, kneeling to check the GPS. Quarter-mile left. Elevation gain of about 400 feet. Terrain? Lena asked. Exposed ridge, no cover, wind's gonna be worse. How much worse? He glanced at the anemometer clipped to his vest. Gusting to 45 right now. Could hit 50 up there. Hollis stepped up beside them. That's extreme conditions, even for a standard shot. Good thing this isn't standard, Lena said. You sure you can do this? She looked at him. Ask me again in 20 minutes. They kept climbing. The ridge appeared out of the darkness like the edge of the world, a narrow spine of rock and snow that dropped away into nothing on both sides. The wind up here was monstrous. It screamed across the ridge, carrying snow in horizontal sheets that stung exposed skin like needles. Pierce crawled to the edge, glassing the valley below with his binoculars. After a moment, he pointed. There. Grid November 74 Alpha. See the structure? Lena crawled up beside him, pulling out her own optics. Through the night vision, she could see it, a small building, maybe a shed or outpost, clinging to the opposite ridgeline. Distance looked impossible, a void of darkness between here and there. 3,247 meters, Pierce confirmed, reading the rangefinder. Give or take 5, and Lena studied the structure. A single window, faintly lit from inside. Movement, just a shadow, barely visible. Target's inside, she said. Yeah. Intel says he comes to the window every 20 minutes or so. Checks the valley, makes radio calls, then moves back. How long is he visible? 30 seconds, maybe 40 if we're lucky. And if he doesn't show during our window? Then we pack up and explain to command why we drove 2 hours through hell for nothing. Lena set down her optics, started unpacking her rifle. The case opened with a soft click. Inside, the M24 lay in custom foam padding, disassembled, cleaned, ready. She pulled out the pieces, started assembling them by feel. Stock to receiver, barrel, scope, bipod. Every movement practiced, automatic. Pierce sat up beside her, pulling out the spotting scope, wind meter, range cards. I'll call wind and elevation. You make the adjustments. Copy. Hollis, Webb, and Torres spread out along the ridge, forming a loose perimeter, watching the valley, watching the approach, watching for anything that could go wrong. Lena finished assembling the rifle, checked the action, smooth, clean, loaded a single round into the chamber. Federal gold medal match, 175 grain. She'd weighed every cartridge personally, selected the ones with the most consistent measurements. At this distance, even a half-grain variation could mean a miss. Pierce glassed the target again. Wind at firing position, gusting 35 to 40 knots, quartering right. Estimate wind down range, variable, probably 20 to 30 at mid-range, increasing near target elevation. Lena pulled out her notebook, flipped to a page covered in pre-calculated data. She'd run the numbers last night, dozens of scenarios, different wind speeds, different temperatures, different humidity levels. Now she just had to match conditions to predictions. Temperature? She asked. Pierce checked the thermometer. 2 degrees. Dropping. Barometric pressure? 28.9 and falling. She found the corresponding data set in her notes. Ran her finger down the columns. Wind right, 35 knots. Temperature 2 degrees, pressure low. Elevation differential 847 feet. Her finger stopped on a number. I need 17.2 mils elevation, she said. 3.8 mils wind. Pierce double-checked his own calculations on the range card. Frowned. I'm getting 16.9 and 4.1. Did you account for the pressure drop? He glanced at the barometer again. Recalculated. Shit. Yeah. You're right. Lena dialed the corrections into her scope. Clicks echoed in the cold air. 17 git. 18 m. 19 bit. She stopped at exactly 17.2, then adjusted windage. 3 full mils. 0.8 more. Set, she said. Pierce checked his watch. 0423. We've got 7 minutes before the window opens. Lena got into position, prone, rifle resting on the bipod, body aligned behind the scope. She pressed her cheek to the stock, found the target through the reticle. The lit window was tiny, a pinprick of light in an ocean of darkness. Target acquired, she said. Copy. Now we wait. The wind howled around them. Lena's body temperature started dropping almost immediately, lying still, pressed against frozen rock, no movement to generate heat. She could feel the cold seeping through her layers into her core. Her fingers started going numb inside her gloves. She ignored it, focused on her breathing, slow, controlled. Each exhale timed to the rhythm of her heartbeat. Behind her, Hollis watched through his own scope. He couldn't see much, just her silhouette, motionless, merged with the rifle like they were one piece. No fidgeting, no adjusting, just absolute stillness. She's not moving, Webb whispered. I can see that. How long can someone hold position like that? Long as they need to. In this cold? Hollis didn't answer. He was watching Lena's breathing, the small clouds of vapor that appeared, rhythmic, perfectly timed. Most people's breath quickened when they were cold. Hers was slowing down. Pierce glassed the target. Movement, window. Lena saw it. A shadow crossing the lit space, too far to see features, just shape, human-sized. Stand by, Pierce said. Not clear yet. The shadow moved away, disappeared. Gone, Pierce said. First pass. We wait for the next one. Lena exhaled slowly, kept her position, didn't move. 3 minutes passed. Felt like 30. Movement again, Pierce said. Window. Targets. Yeah, he's there, standing. Looks like he's on a radio. Through her scope, Lena could see it now. The faint outline of a figure, backlit by the interior light. Range. 3,247 meters. Wind. Variable. Temperature. Dropping. Every factor against her. She focused on the reticle. Watched the way the crosshairs moved slightly with each gust of wind. The pattern wasn't random. It pulsed, just like she'd observed on the range yesterday. 18 to 22 seconds between major gusts. She waited. Winds at 40 knots, Pierce said. Gusting to 45. Hold for lull. Lena's finger rested beside the trigger. Not on it. Not yet. The wind screamed. The rifle moved. Just a fraction, but enough to throw off a shot at this range. Seconds ticked past. Target's moving, Pierce said. Tension in his voice now. He's gonna step away. Lena didn't respond. Just watched. Waited. The wind gusted, hard. The scope reticle danced. Then, just for a moment, it softened. Not gone. Just less. Lena exhaled halfway. Held it. Her finger curled onto the trigger. Steady pressure, smooth, no jerk. The rifle cracked. The sound echoed across the valley, swallowed almost immediately by the wind. Then silence. 4 seconds. That's how long it took for the bullet to travel 3,247 meters. 4 seconds where the world stopped. Lena stayed on target, watching through the scope. The lit window. The shadow inside. Pierce had his spotting scope locked on the same point, breath held, counting in his head. 3 seconds. The shadow moved. 4 seconds. And dropped. The light in the window flickered, then went dark. Pierce lowered his scope slowly, keyed his radio. Overlook to base. Stand by for confirmation. Static. Then, Base copies, standing by. He glassed the target building again. No movement, no light, just darkness. Another radio clicked on, different frequency. Intel channel. A voice came through, flat, professional. Signal intercept confirms target transmission ceased mid-broadcast. No subsequent activity. Pierce exhaled, keyed his radio again. Overlook to base, confirmed impact, target neutralized. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Hollis lowered his own scope, stared at Lena's back. She hadn't moved. Still prone, still locked on target. Holy shit, Webb whispered. Torres just shook his head. Pierce reached over, tapped Lena's shoulder. You can come off target. She cleared her rifle, ejected the spent casing. It landed in the snow with a soft hiss. Then she sat up slowly, joints stiff from the cold and the stillness. Her face was unreadable. No celebration, no relief, just quiet exhaustion. Good shot, Pierce said. Thanks. That was... I don't even know what that was. Ballistics. That was a lot more than ballistics. She packed her rifle in silence, hands moving automatically. Stock, barrel, scope, back into the case. Every piece in its place. Hollis walked over, stopped a few feet away, stared at her for a long moment. How? He asked finally. How what? How did you make that shot? I told you. Math. Don't give me that. I know the math. I've run those calculations 100 times. The wind alone should have made that shot impossible. Lena zipped the rifle case closed. The wind wasn't random. It had a pattern, 18 to 22-second cycles. I waited for the lull. Lulls at that speed aren't predictable. They are if you watch long enough. You watched for 3 minutes. I've been watching since we got here, since yesterday, since the moment I stepped off that transport. She stood, shouldering the case. I told you, I wasn't failing on the range. I was learning. Webb stepped closer. So all of it, yesterday, the misses, the notebook, that was you mapping wind patterns? Partially. Also rifle performance, scope 0, ammunition consistency, atmospheric pressure gradients. She paused. And testing how all of you react under pressure. Testing us, Hollis said, while we were laughing at you. Yes. Why? Because I needed to know if you'd keep your heads when things got real. She looked at him directly. And I needed to see who would write me off based on first impressions. The words landed like stones. Hollis's jaw tightened. That's cold. That's the job. Your job is to manipulate people? My job is to assess whether units can handle extreme operations. That includes seeing how they treat perceived weakness. By letting us think you were incompetent. By giving you every reason to doubt me and seeing what you did with it. Pierce stepped between them. All right, we can debrief later. Right now we need to move. Weather's getting worse and we've got a 2-hour drive back. Lena nodded, started walking toward the tree line. Hollis watched her go. Behind him, Webb said quietly, She played us. All of us. Yeah. And she made a shot I wouldn't have tried in a million years. Yeah. So what does that make her? Hollis didn't answer. He just turned and followed, boots crunching in the snow. The drive back was quieter than the drive out. Everyone was exhausted. The adrenaline had burned off, leaving only fatigue and cold and the strange hollow feeling that came after something significant happened. Too big to process immediately, too heavy to ignore. Lena sat in the same seat, rifle case between her knees, eyes closed. This time, she actually was sleeping, head tilted back, breathing slow and deep. Pierce sat across from her, reviewing mission data on the tablet. Wind logs, temperature readings, shot calculations. He kept coming back to the same numbers, the same impossible math. You're staring, Hollis said. Pierce glanced up, just trying to figure out how she did it. She told you. Math. The math doesn't account for everything. Wind at that distance isn't just numbers, it's chaos. You can calculate the average, but the instant-to-instant variation? That's feel. That's experience. She's got 11 years. 11 years doing what, though? What kind of program trains someone to shoot like that? Hollis leaned back. The kind we're not supposed to know about. The truck hit another pothole. Lena's eyes opened briefly, then closed again. She doesn't trust us, Hollis said. Can you blame her? We didn't do anything wrong. We evaluated her based on performance. She failed. We responded accordingly. She failed on purpose. How were we supposed to know that? Pierce set down the tablet. That's the point. We weren't. She was testing whether we'd look deeper, whether we'd ask questions, whether we'd consider alternatives before making judgments. That's manipulation. That's assessment. Same thing. Not even close. Hollis crossed his arms. You defending her now? I'm saying she has a job, just like we do, and her job includes evaluating how units perform under non-standard conditions. By lying to us, by giving us incomplete information and seeing what we do with it. Pierce paused. Which, when you think about it, is exactly what combat does. Hollis didn't respond. He just stared out the window at the passing darkness. They reached the compound at 6:12. Dawn was starting to break, pale gray light bleeding into the eastern sky, turning the mountains from black to dark blue. The convoy pulled through the gates, engines shut off. Doors opened. Everyone climbed out stiff, cold, drained. Major Reyes was waiting near the operations center, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Pierce approached first. Mission accomplished, ma'am. Target neutralized. Reyes nodded. Intel confirmed. Enemy communications went dark immediately after the shot. Networks already showing signs of collapse. She paused. Hell of a shot. Boss made it. I just spotted. Reyes looked past him to where Lena stood pulling gear from the truck. I want a full debrief in 2 hours. Everyone involved. No exceptions. Yes, ma'am. As Reyes walked away, Hollis stepped up beside Pierce. You think she's going to tell us the truth now? About what she's really doing here? Doubt it. Then what's the point of the debrief? Protocol. Documentation. Making sure everyone's story matches. Pierce glanced at him. And giving her another chance to evaluate us. Hollis shook his head. I don't like this. You don't have to like it. You just have to deal with it. The debrief happened in the operations center at 800. The room was warm, almost too warm after hours in the cold, and smelled like coffee and exhaustion. Reyes sat at the head of the table, Pierce and Lena on one side, Hollis, Webb, and Torres on the other. Captain Merrick stood near the back, tablet in hand, recording everything. Let's start with the basics, Reyes said. Mission timeline. Pierce? Pierce walked through it. Departure time, route, insertion, approach, shot execution, exfil. By the book, professional, no embellishment. When he finished, Reyes turned to Lena. Anything to add? No, ma'am. Sergeant Pierce's account is accurate. Walk me through the shot itself, conditions, adjustments, decision-making. Lena pulled out her notebook, flipped to the relevant page. Wind at firing position averaged 37 knots with gusts to 45. Temperature was 2 degrees Fahrenheit. Barometric pressure 28.9 inches and dropping. I calculated 17.2 mils elevation correction and 3.8 mils wind correction based on pre-mission modeling and real-time observation. And the timing? I waited for a lull in the wind pattern. Patterns at this elevation tend to cycle every 18 to 22 seconds. I observed the cycle, confirmed consistency, then took the shot during the optimal window. Reyes leaned back. You observed this pattern in 3 minutes of waiting? I observed it over the past 36 hours. The wait on the ridge was confirmation. Explain. Lena hesitated, glanced at Merrick. He nodded. Permission to disclose. My primary assignment here wasn't as a standard transfer, Lena said. I'm part of a long-range precision program, classified. I was sent to assess this unit's operational readiness and capability under extreme conditions. By pretending to be incompetent, Hollis cut in. Lena looked at him. By providing a baseline scenario to evaluate response patterns. That's a fancy way of saying you lied. I controlled variables. There's a difference. Not to us. Reyes raised a hand. Corporal, let her finish. Lena turned back to Reyes. The program I'm part of specializes in extreme distance engagements under adverse conditions. Our training includes not just marksmanship, but meteorology, ballistics engineering, environmental psychology, and operational assessment. Part of that assessment involves embedding in units to evaluate how they handle stress, uncertainty, and non-standard personnel. So the range performance yesterday, Reyes started, was intentional, Lena finished. I needed to understand the local environmental conditions before attempting a real shot. I also needed to observe how the unit responded to perceived failure. And your conclusion? A pause. Then, mixed. Elaborate. Lena chose her words carefully. The unit has strong technical skills and solid cohesion under known conditions, but there's a tendency to rely on assumptions rather than observation. When presented with unexpected variables, in this case me, the default response was dismissal rather than investigation. Hollis's face went red. We didn't dismiss you. We evaluated you based on performance. You evaluated me based on first impressions. You saw me miss at 300 meters and concluded I couldn't shoot. You didn't ask why I was missing. You didn't consider alternative explanations. You just assumed incompetence. Because that's what it looked like. Exactly. Lena leaned forward. And that's the problem. In combat, things aren't always what they look like. An enemy who seems weak might be laying a trap. An ally who seems strong might be overconfident. If your default response is to trust surface-level observation, you miss what's underneath. That's easy to say when you're the one running the test. And it's essential to understand when you're the one being tested, which, by the way, you are. Every mission, every engagement, reality doesn't care about your assumptions. The room went quiet. Webb broke the silence. So what happens now? You file a report saying we failed. I file a report saying you're capable but need to develop deeper observational discipline. Lena closed her notebook, which is better than most units get. Reyes stood. All right, that's enough for now. Voss, you'll provide a written assessment to Captain Merrick by 1400. Everyone else, you're dismissed. Get some rest. Chairs scraped, people stood, filed out. Hollis left first, not looking back. Webb and Torres followed. Pierce lingered near the door. You coming? Lena shook her head. In a minute. He nodded and left. When the room was empty except for Reyes and Merrick, the Major turned to Lena. You made them look foolish, Reyes said quietly. I made them see their blind spots. There are easier ways to do that. Easier, yes, but not as effective. People don't change unless they're confronted with consequences. Reyes studied her. How many units have you assessed? This is my 7th. And how many passed? Depends on your definition of passing. They all learned something. Whether they apply it is up to them. You don't make friends doing this. That's not the job. No, Reyes said, but it's lonely. Lena didn't respond. Reyes walked to the door, paused. For what it's worth, that shot was remarkable. Best I've seen in 20 years. Thank you, ma'am. But next time you want to test my people, give me a heads up first. A faint smile. Where's the fun in that? Reyes almost laughed, then left. Alone in the operations center, Lena sat for a long moment, staring at her notebook. Pages filled with data, observations, calculations, assessments. She'd done her job, made the shot, evaluated the unit, accomplished the mission. But Reyes was right. It was lonely. By evening, word had spread. The impossible shot. The rookie who wasn't a rookie. The test that no one knew they were taking. In the mess hall, conversations died when Lena walked in. Eyes followed her. Not hostile exactly, but not friendly either. Wary, uncertain. She got her food, something that might have been chicken, might have been turkey, definitely wasn't good, and sat alone at a corner table. After a few minutes, Pierce sat down across from her. Mind if I join? She shrugged. It's a free country. Barely. He poked at his food. So, 11 years in a classified program. That's a long time. It is. What made you sign up for that? I didn't. I was recruited. Why? She looked at him. Because I'm good at observing patterns, and I'm better at keeping secrets. Must get exhausting. Sometimes. Do you ever actually shoot with people, or is it always undercover evaluations? Depends on the mission. Sometimes I'm embedded as support. Sometimes I'm primary shooter. Sometimes I'm just watching. And which is this? All three. Pierce set down his fork. Can I ask you something? Sure? That shot, the way you waited for the wind, the way you just knew when to fire, that's not something you learn from books. No. So where'd you learn it? Lena was quiet for a moment, then, Afghanistan, 2019. I was part of a team hunting high-value targets in the mountains. We had a shot opportunity, 2,800 meters, extreme wind, limited time window. My spotter said it was impossible. I calculated the wind pattern, waited for the cycle, took the shot. Hit. What happened after? We extracted. Target was eliminated. Mission success. She paused. But my spotter filed a report saying I'd acted recklessly, that I'd ignored his guidance, that I'd put the mission at risk. What'd you say? Nothing. The shot spoke for itself. She picked at her food. But after that, they moved me into assessment roles. Figured if I could read conditions that well, I could read people too. And can you? Usually. What do you read from us? She considered the question. You're a good team, experienced, competent, but you've been doing this long enough that you've stopped questioning your instincts. You see what you expect to see, and that makes you vulnerable. To what? To anything that doesn't fit your expectations. Pierce absorbed that. You think we would have died out there if you hadn't made that shot? No, Hollis would have tried. He might have even hit, but the probability was low. How low? 5%. Maybe 10 if conditions improved. And you? 50-50. Better than most. Worse than certain. But you did it anyway. Because 50-50 beats 5%. Pierce smiled. You know, for someone who doesn't trust easy answers, you've got a lot of them. That's because I've done the math. Not everything's math, Voss. No, she agreed. But more things are than people think. Later that night, Lena lay in her bunk staring at the ceiling. The barracks was quiet. Most people were asleep. A few whispered conversations in the dark. The wind outside constant as ever. She pulled out her notebook, flipped to a blank page, started writing. Unit Assessment, FOB. Sentinel, Technical Capability. High Tactical Cohesion. High Observational Discipline. Moderate Adaptability to Unknown Variables. Low to moderate, response to non-standard personnel. Dismissive initially, improving post-demonstration. Recommendation. She stopped, pen hovering over paper. What was the recommendation? They were good soldiers. They'd survived most missions. But they had blind spots, big ones. The kind that got people killed when the situation didn't match their expectations. But they'd also adapted. Once they saw what she could do, they'd started questioning their assumptions. Not all of them, not completely, but enough to matter. Was that growth or just reaction? She didn't know yet. After a moment, she wrote, Recommendation, continued operational deployment with emphasis on scenario-based training that challenges assumptions. Unit shows capacity for growth but requires external pressure to activate it. She closed the notebook, tucked it under her pillow. Across the room, someone was watching her. She felt it before she saw it. Hollis, lying in his bunk, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Their eyes met in the darkness. Neither spoke. After a long moment, Hollis turned over, facing the wall. Lena closed her eyes. Tomorrow, she'd file her report. The day after, she'd probably get new orders. Another unit. Another assessment. Another mission where she'd pretend to be something she wasn't, to see what people revealed when they thought no one important was watching. It was the job. It was lonely, and she was very, very good at it. Outside, the wind howled across the frozen valley, carrying snow and secrets into the endless dark. The alarm shattered the silence at 0347, not the regular wake-up call. The emergency klaxon, sharp, piercing, impossible to ignore. Lena was on her feet before the second blast, boots laced, rifle in hand, moving on pure instinct. Around her, the barracks erupted. Soldiers stumbling out of bunks, grabbing gear, voices overlapping in controlled chaos. What's happening? I don't know. Everyone up, now! The intercom crackled. Major Reyes's voice clipped and urgent. All personnel to Operations Center, immediate. This is not a drill. Lena was already moving. She hit the corridor at a run, Pierce falling in beside her, Hollis close behind. Webb and Torres emerged from adjacent rooms, half-dressed, but armed. Any idea what this is? Pierce asked. No. They reached the operations center in under 2 minutes. The room was packed. Every soldier from the unit, plus support staff, intelligence liaisons, even the mechanics who kept the vehicles running. Everyone crammed into a space meant for half this many people. Reyes stood at the front, face pale in the harsh fluorescent light. Captain Merrick was beside her, tablet in hand, expression grim. "Listen up," Reyes said. No preamble, no easing into it. 40 minutes ago, we received intel from satellite surveillance. There's been movement in the Northern Valley, enemy forces, significant numbers, moving toward a civilian settlement. She clicked the remote. The main screen lit up with aerial imagery, thermal signatures, dozens of them, maybe more. The settlement is home to approximately 200 people, mostly families. No defensive capabilities. Intel suggests the enemy force is planning a raid. Supplies, hostages, strategic positioning. If they reach that village, it's a massacre. The room went cold. "How far out are they?" someone asked. 12 miles, moving fast. We estimate they'll reach the village in 90 minutes. What's our response time? If we leave now, we can intercept in 70. Hollis stepped forward. What's the enemy's strength? Merrick pulled up another image. Best estimate, 40 to 50 combatants. Heavily armed, experienced. They're using the terrain for cover, moving in dispersed formation. Against how many of us? 11 shooters, plus support. The math was brutal. 40 against 11. In unfamiliar terrain, at night. Webb exhaled slowly. That's suicide odds. That's the situation, Reyes said flatly. Command is scrambling air support, but the nearest strike capability is 2 hours out. By then, it's over. We're the only asset close enough to make a difference. So what's the play? Pierce asked. Reyes looked at him. We don't have one yet. That's why you're here. I need options. Fast. The room broke into low conversations. Soldiers clustering around maps, running scenarios, calculating distances and angles and kill zones. Lena stood near the back, silent, studying the satellite imagery. The enemy formation, the terrain, the settlement's position in the valley. Her mind started running calculations automatically. Distance, elevation, approach vectors, choke points. We can't take them head on, Hollis said, pointing at the map. They've got numbers and firepower. We'd get shredded. Ambush? Someone suggested. Where? The valley's wide open. No natural cover until you're practically on top of the village. What about slowing them down? Force them into a bottleneck? With what? We don't have time to set traps. The conversation spiraled. Everyone talking, no one landing on anything solid. Lena kept staring at the map, at the terrain features, at the elevation lines. There was something there, a pattern, a possibility. What about high ground? She said. The room went quiet. Everyone turned. Reyes looked at her. Explain. Lena stepped forward, pointing at the map. Here. Ridge overlooking the valley approach. Elevation approximately 1,200 feet above the valley floor. Clear line of sight to the entire enemy route for about 3 miles. So we don't engage directly. We don't need to. We take position on that ridge and start picking them off from distance. Force them to scatter, break their cohesion, make them choose between advancing into fire or retreating. Hollis shook his head. That's extreme distance shooting. Most of us can't reliably hit past 1,000 meters in combat conditions. I can. The words hung in the air. Merrick frowned. You're talking about sustained fire at, what, 1,500 meters? 2,000? Depends on their exact position. But yes, somewhere in that range. Against moving targets. Yes. At night. I've done it before. Hollis stepped closer. You're serious. You want to take on 50 combatants from a ridge, by yourself. Not by myself. I'll need spotters, security, ammunition runners. But the primary shooting? Yes. That's me. That's insane. That's the only option that doesn't get us killed. Pierce looked at the map again. How many shots are we talking about? As many as it takes. If I can drop 10, 15 targets before they locate our position, the rest will break. Experienced fighters don't advance into sustained long-range fire they can't return. They'll retreat or scatter. And if they don't, then we adjust. But the math favors disruption over direct engagement. Reyes studied the map. How long to get into position? 40 minutes if we move fast, another 10 to set up. That leaves 30 minutes before they reach the village. Plenty of time. Hollis made a disgusted sound. This is crazy. We're betting everything on one shooter making impossible shots in the dark against an enemy force 5 times our size. Lena turned to him. You have a better idea? Yeah, we call for air support and delay until they arrive. Air support is 2 hours out. The village gets overrun in 90 minutes. Do the math. Then we fall back. Evacuate the civilians. Where? Into the mountains? In the dark? With families and kids? They'd freeze before dawn. Hollis's jaw clenched. So your plan is to kill enough people that the rest run away. And if that doesn't work, then at least we bought time. That's not a plan. That's a prayer. Better than doing nothing. Reyes raised a hand. Enough. She looked at Lena. Can you do this? Actually do it? Lena met her eyes. Yes, ma'am. With certainty? A pause. Then, nothing's certain in combat, but I can make enough shots to break their advance. After that, it's their choice whether to keep dying or turn around. Reyes was silent for a long moment. Then she turned to Pierce. Your assessment? Pierce looked at Lena, at the map, at the impossible equation they were trying to solve. I think, he said slowly, that she's right. We can't win a direct fight. We can't evacuate in time, and air support won't arrive before it's too late. This is the only play that gives us a chance. Even if it's a long shot? It's the only shot we've got. Reyes nodded, turned to Hollis. Corporal? Hollis stared at Lena, face unreadable. I think we're about to find out if she's as good as she claims. That's not an answer. My answer is I don't like it, but I don't have anything better. He paused. So yeah, let's see what she can do. Reyes straightened. All right, Voss, your primary shooter. Pierce, you're her spotter. Hollis, your security lead. Take Webb and Torres, establish a perimeter on that ridge. Everyone else, your support. Ammunition, communications, casualty evac if it goes bad. She checked her watch. Wheels up in 10 minutes. Move. The room exploded into motion. The convoy tore through the darkness at speeds that made the previous night's drive look cautious. Headlights off, night vision only, engines screaming as they climbed into the mountains. Lena sat in the lead truck, checking her rifle for the 3rd time. Everything was perfect. It had been perfect the first time, but checking kept her hands busy, kept her mind focused. Across from her, Hollis watched. You scared? No. Not even a little? Fear doesn't improve accuracy. That's not what I asked. She looked up. I'm focused. Fear comes later, if I survive to feel it. You've done this before. Combat, I mean. Real combat. Yes. How many times? Enough to know what works and what doesn't. And this works? Usually. Usually isn't certainty. Certainty doesn't exist. She set the rifle down. All we can do is maximize probability and execute cleanly. Hollis leaned forward. You know what I think? What? I think you're just as scared as the rest of us. You just hide it better. Lena almost smiled. Maybe. Why? Because if I let people see it, they start doubting. And doubt spreads faster than fear. So you carry it alone. That's the job. Hollis shook his head. That's a lonely way to live. Someone already told me that. They were right. The truck hit a bump. Everyone jolted. The driver cursed, corrected, kept pushing. Pierce leaned over from the front seat. 5 minutes to insertion point. Lena started gearing up. Extra magazines, rangefinder, wind meter, notebook. Everything she'd need for sustained fire. How many rounds you carrying? Webb asked. 100? Think that's enough? It'll have to be. The truck slowed, stopped, engines cut. Everyone piled out into the freezing darkness. The ridge loomed above them, steep, rocky, covered in ice and loose scree. 35-minute climb, Pierce said, checking the GPS. We need to move. They started climbing. It was worse than the previous mission. Steeper terrain, less time, higher stakes. Lena's lungs burned within minutes. Her legs screamed. The rifle case on her back felt like it weighed 100 pounds. She kept moving, one step, then another. Don't think about the distance. Don't think about the time. Just climb. Halfway up, Webb slipped on ice, went down hard. Torres grabbed him before he slid backward. They kept moving. 20 minutes in, they hit the ridgeline. Pierce immediately started setting up, spotting scope, range cards, wind meter. Hollis, Webb, and Torres spread out in a loose perimeter, scanning for threats. Lena assembled her rifle. Fast this time. No careful deliberation, just muscle memory and speed. Talk to me, she said. Pierce glassed the valley below. I've got visual on the enemy column, range 2,100 meters and closing, 43 heat signatures, moving in staggered formation. Speed? Maybe 3 miles per hour, terrain slowing them down. Time to target? If they maintain pace, 50 minutes to the village. Lena loaded her rifle, settled into position, found the column through her scope. Even with night vision, they were hard to see, just shapes moving through darkness. But they were there. Real. Closing in. Wind? She asked. 12 knots, quartering left. Temperature? 8 degrees. Stable. She ran the calculations, dialed corrections into her scope. 17 clicks up. 2 left. I'm set, she said. Target priorities? Lead elements first. Force the column to stop, then work toward the middle. Break their cohesion. Copy. First target, lead man, 2,100 meters. Wind steady at 12 knots. Lena found him in the scope. A figure moving with purpose, confident, probably thinking they were safe, that no one was watching. She exhaled, held it, pressed the trigger. The rifle cracked. 2 seconds later, the lead figure dropped. The column stopped. Hit, Pierce confirmed. They're halting, trying to figure out what happened. Next target. Second in line. Range 2,105. She adjusted, fired. Another hit. Now the column scattered. Heat signatures breaking formation, moving for cover that didn't exist in the open valley. They're panicking, Pierce said. Looking for the shooter. Good. Keep calling targets. Third target, range 2,090. Moving left. She tracked. Led the target. Fired. Miss. The round kicked up snow 3 feet to the right. Wind shifted, Pierce said. Now 15 knots. She adjusted, found the target again, fired, hit. The enemy column was in chaos now. Some taking cover behind rocks, others running back the way they'd come. A few returning fire, blind, hopeless shots into the darkness. They can't see us, Pierce said. They're just shooting at noise. How many down? 5 confirmed. Maybe 6. Not enough. Keep calling. For the next 20 minutes, Lena worked methodically. Target, adjust, fire, reload, over and over. Each shot a calculation. Each hit a probability made real. The rifle grew hot in her hands. The barrel heated from sustained fire. Accuracy would start degrading soon, but not yet. 10 shots, 12, 15. Some missed. Wind gusts, bad timing. Target movement she couldn't predict. But enough hit, enough to matter. They're breaking, Pierce said. Columns fragmenting, some retreating, some trying to advance, no cohesion. Count? 14 down, maybe 16. Hard to confirm in this light. Lena kept firing. Then the radio crackled. Reyes's voice, tense. Overlook, be advised. Enemy force is splitting. Majority pulling back, but a smaller group is advancing fast toward the village. 10 to 12 combatants. They're trying to complete the mission before we stop them. Pierce cursed. Range to that group? Lena glassed ahead. Found them. Moving fast, low, using terrain. 1,800 meters, closing. Can you stop them? I can try. She shifted targets. Found the lead runner. Fired. Miss. He was moving too fast. Second shot. Another miss. They're at 1,600, Pierce said. 45 seconds to the village edge. Lena's heart rate spiked. For the first time all night, she felt it. The pressure, the impossibility, the weight of 200 lives depending on shots she couldn't guarantee. Third shot. Hit. 1 down. 1,400 meters, 30 seconds. Fourth shot. Hit. 1,200 meters. She was firing faster now. Mechanics over precision. Volume over certainty. Fifth shot. Miss. Sixth. Hit. They're at the village, Pierce said. 8 still moving. Lena shifted her aim to the buildings. Narrower angles now. Civilians nearby. Every shot risked collateral damage. She hesitated. Voss, Pierce said urgently. You gotta take them. Too close to the structures. If you don't shoot, they're going in. Her finger hovered on the trigger. Then she saw it. A gap. A clear lane where the enemy fighters were exposed, away from the buildings. She fired. Hit. Again. Hit. The remaining fighters scattered into the village streets. Out of sight. Gone. Lena lowered her rifle. I lost them. Pierce glassed the village. I count 5 down on approach. 3 made it in. Civilians. Can't see. Too dark. The radio crackled again. Overlook. This is ground team. We're approaching the village now. Stand by. 60 seconds of silence, the longest minute of Lena's life. Then, Overlook, ground team. Village is secure. 3 enemy combatants neutralized by local defenders. No civilian casualties. Lena exhaled, closed her eyes. Pierce looked at her. You did it. We did it. No, that was you. He pointed down at the valley. I count 19 enemy down. Maybe more. The rest scattered. The village is safe. From the perimeter, Hollis walked over. His face was unreadable. 19, he said quietly. Give or take. In 20 minutes. About that. He stared at her, then at the valley, then back at her. I owe you an apology, he said. Lena looked up. For what? For doubting you. For laughing. For assuming you were something you weren't. He paused. That was some of the best shooting I've ever seen. Maybe the best. It was just math. No, that was a lot more than math. He extended his hand. I was wrong about you. But she hesitated, then shook his hand. You weren't wrong, she said. You just didn't have enough information. Same thing. Not really. You responded to what you saw. That's human. The trick is staying open to new data. Hollis nodded slowly. Noted. Webb and Torres came over, both looking shell-shocked. That was unreal, Webb said. How do you even, moving targets in the dark, at that range? Practice, Lena said simply, and a lot of failed shots no one saw. Still, Pierce started packing gear. See, we should move. Enemy forces scattered but not gone. They could regroup. Everyone started breaking down equipment. Fast, efficient, professional. As they prepared to descend, Reyes's voice came over the radio again. Overlook. Air support just arrived. They're sweeping the valley now. You're clear to exfil. Copy that, Pierce said. In the distance, they could hear it, the low rumble of jets barely visible against the black sky, running cleanup on what Lena had started. The climb down was quieter than the climb up, everyone lost in their own thoughts, processing what had just happened. Near the bottom, Hollis walked beside Lena. Can I ask you something? He said. Sure. Back there. When those fighters got close to the village, you hesitated. I did. Why? Because I couldn't guarantee a clean shot. Too much risk. But you took it anyway. Because the alternative was worse. How'd you know you wouldn't hit a civilian? I didn't. She paused. But I knew if I didn't shoot, people would definitely die. So I took the better odds. That's a hell of a weight to carry. It is. How do you live with it? She looked at him. I do the math, I make the shot, and I accept that sometimes, even when you do everything right, things still go wrong. That's cold. No, that's realistic. She adjusted her rifle case. Hope doesn't stop bullets, calculation does. And when calculation isn't enough, you make the best choice you can and live with the consequences. They reached the trucks. Everyone loaded in. Engines started. As they pulled away, Lena looked back at the ridge, the position where she'd lain for 20 minutes, sending rounds into the darkness, changing outcomes, saving lives. It felt good. It also felt hollow. Because tomorrow, there'd be another mission, another impossible task, another moment where she'd have to prove herself all over again to people who'd never know the full truth of who she was or what she'd done. That was the job. and she was very, very tired. Back at the compound, dawn was breaking, pale light spilling over the mountains, turning snow from gray to white to gold. The convoy rolled through the gates, stopped. Everyone climbed out, moving slow, exhausted. Major Reyes was waiting. She looked at Lena, just looked, for a long moment. Then she nodded once. Respect, recognition, understanding. Lena nodded back. No words needed. Inside the operations center, Merrick was compiling after-action reports, casualty counts, ammunition expenditure, mission outcomes. 19 confirmed enemy kills, he said, reading from the tablet. Estimated 10 to 15 more wounded and retreating. 0 friendly casualties. 0 civilian casualties. Village secured. Enemy network in the region completely disrupted. He looked up at Lena. That's unprecedented. It's statistics, she said. No, that's exceptional marksmanship under combat conditions. She didn't respond. Reyes stepped forward. Voss, you're dismissed for debrief until 1400. Get some rest. You've earned it. Yes, ma'am. Lena turned to leave. At the door she stopped, looked back. Ma'am? Yes? The assessment I filed yesterday. I'd like to revise it. Why? Because I was wrong about something. What? I said the unit relied too much on assumptions, that they wrote people off based on first impressions. She paused. But tonight, when it mattered, they trusted me, followed the plan, executed without hesitation. That's not assumption, that's adaptability. Reyes almost smiled. So what's the revised assessment? They're better than I gave them credit for. They just needed a reason to prove it. Noted. Reyes crossed her arms. Anything else? No, ma'am. Then dismissed. Lena walked out. Yeah. In the barracks, soldiers were cleaning weapons, restocking gear, processing the night in their own ways. Lena sat on her bunk, disassembling her rifle. The barrel was fouled from sustained fire. She'd need to clean it thoroughly, check for wear, make sure everything was perfect for next time. Pierce sat down across from her. You know what I realized tonight? What? You weren't testing us on that first day, not really. No? No. You were giving us a chance to see past the obvious, to look deeper, to ask questions instead of making judgments. He paused. Most of us failed, but you gave us another shot tonight, and we didn't fail that one. Lena looked up. You're right. I was testing, but not the way you think. How then? I was testing whether you could change, whether you'd stay locked into first impressions or adapt when new information came in. She cleaned carbon from the bolt carrier. Tonight, when I said I could make those shots, you could have dismissed me again. Could have said I got lucky the first time. But you didn't. You trusted the data. That's growth. So we passed. A faint smile. You passed. What about Hollis? What about him? He apologized. I've never seen him apologize for anything. That's character. She reassembled the rifle. Takes strength to admit you were wrong. Most people can't do it. Pierce stood. Get some rest, Voss. You've earned it. Thanks. He walked away. Lena lay back on her bunk, staring at the ceiling. Her body ached. Her hands were raw. Her ears rang from sustained fire. But she'd done it. Saved 200 people. Stopped an enemy force 5 times their size. Made impossible shots in the dark. Proved, again, that she was exactly what she'd always claimed to be. But the victory felt strange, incomplete, because in 3 days she'd get new orders. Another unit, another test, another group of people who'd doubt her until she proved herself all over again. The cycle never ended, and she was starting to wonder if she wanted it to. Outside, the wind died down. For the first time in days, the compound was quiet, peaceful. Lena closed her eyes, and for just a moment, let herself rest. She woke to voices, not shouting. Worse. The kind of controlled professional arguing that meant decisions were being made without her. Lena opened her eyes. The barracks was empty. Sunlight streamed through the windows, midday, maybe later. She'd slept through most of the morning. Her body felt like lead. She sat up slowly. Every muscle protested. Her shoulder ached from the rifle's recoil. Her hands were stiff. The voices were coming from outside. She stood, moved to the window. In the courtyard, Major Reyes stood face to face with someone Lena didn't recognize. A man in his 50s, gray hair, expensive cold weather gear that looked too clean for this place. Civilian contractor, maybe. Or someone higher up the chain. Captain Merrick stood nearby, tablet in hand, expression carefully neutral. Lena couldn't hear the conversation, but she could read the body language. Reyes, arms crossed, jaw tight, defensive. The stranger, gesturing, emphatic, clearly unhappy about something. This wasn't good. She dressed quickly, moved toward the door. Pierce intercepted her in the corridor. "You're up." "What's happening?" "Brass showed up an hour ago. Been in meetings with Reyes since then." "Who is it?" "Deputy Director Wallace, from the program you're actually with, the classified one." Lena's stomach tightened. "What's he doing here?" "Don't know, but Reyes doesn't look happy." "Where's everyone else?" "Mess hall. Waiting. Word is there's going to be a full unit briefing at 1400. Lena checked her watch. 13:42. 18 minutes. "I need to talk to Reyes first." "She's still with Wallace." "I'll wait." Pierce studied her face. "You know what this is about?" "Maybe." "Want to share?" "Not yet." He nodded. "All right. I'll see you at the briefing." Lena walked to the operations center, stood outside the door, listening. Inside, Reyes's voice strained. "Didn't authorize any of this. She was sent here under false pretenses." Wallace's voice, smooth, bureaucratic. "She was sent here to assess operational readiness. That assessment required realistic scenario testing." "Realistic?" "She manipulated my entire unit, made them think she was incompetent. That's not assessment, that's deception. That's methodology, and it produced actionable intelligence. It also produced a security breach. My people didn't know they were being evaluated. That undermines trust. Your people performed exceptionally once they understood what was required. That proves the assessment model works. Or it proves they're good soldiers who adapted despite the lies." A pause. Then Wallace. "Major, I understand you're frustrated, but the results speak for themselves. Last night's engagement, 19 enemy combatants neutralized, 0 friendly casualties, village saved. That doesn't happen without exceptional personnel and leadership. That happened because Voss is an exceptional shooter, not because your assessment program works. And we identified her as exceptional precisely because the program works." Reyes didn't respond immediately. Lena could picture her standing there, calculating, trying to find an angle. "What happens now?" Reyes asked finally. "Voss files her final report, I review it, then she moves to her next assignment. And my unit?" "Goes back to normal operations, with the recommendation that they continue to challenge their assumptions and maintain observational discipline." "That's it? She just leaves?" "That's the job, Major. She was never meant to stay." Silence. Lena stepped back from the door, moved down the corridor, found an empty room and sat down, processing. So Wallace was here to pull her out. Standard procedure. Assessment complete, move to the next unit, repeat the cycle. Except this time felt different. This time she'd actually connected with people. Pierce, Hollis, even Webb. They trusted her, followed her plan, executed flawlessly, and now she was going to disappear without explanation. Just another tool the bureaucracy used and discarded. The door opened. Reyes stood there, looking tired. "You heard," she said. "Some of it." "Wallace wants you in the briefing, says the unit deserves to know the truth." "All of it?" "Enough." Lena stood. "For what it's worth, I didn't want to lie to them." "But you did anyway." "Yes." "Because that's the job." "Yes." Reyes stepped closer. "I'm not going to lie to you, Voss. I'm pissed. You made my people look foolish. You tested them without permission. You put them in a position where they had to question everything they thought they knew." "I know." "But," Reyes paused, "you also saved 200 lives last night. And you showed my unit what they're capable of when they stop assuming and start adapting. So I'm conflicted." "I understand." "Do you?" "Because from where I'm standing, you're a ghost. You show up, run your tests, collect your data, and vanish. No accountability, no consequences, just results." Lena met her eyes. "You're right. That's exactly what I am. And I hate it." Reyes blinked. "What?" I hate this job. I hate lying to people. I hate making them feel stupid. I hate that every unit I assess, I have to start over, prove myself again, watch people laugh at me until I demonstrate enough competence that they take me seriously. She paused. But I'm good at it. And the program needs people who are good at it. So I keep doing it. Why? Because someone has to. Because units like yours need outside perspective. Because soldiers get comfortable, and comfort gets people killed. She sat back down. But you're right about one thing. I am a ghost. And ghosts don't get to have real connections. They just haunt places and move on. Reyes was quiet for a moment. Then, Wallace says you're one of the best long-range precision shooters in the program. Maybe in the entire military. I'm adequate. 19 targets, 20 minutes? Combat conditions, that's not adequate. That's exceptional. It's statistics. Good rifle, good data, good execution. It's more than that. Reyes crossed her arms. The question is, what do you do with someone that good? Keep them in assessment roles, running tests, or put them where they can actually fight? That's not my decision. Maybe it should be. Before Lena could respond, the PA system crackled. All personnel to the operations center. Briefing starts in 5 minutes. Reyes headed for the door. Stopped. For what it's worth, Voss, my unit respects you now. What you did last night earned that. Don't waste it by disappearing without giving them answers. She left. Lena sat alone, staring at her hands. They were still stained with carbon from the rifle, still raw from the cold. She stood, straightened her uniform, walked to the operations center. The room was packed, every soldier from the unit plus support staff standing in tight rows. At the front, Wallace stood beside Reyes and Merrick. He had the look of someone who'd spent his career behind desks, making decisions other people executed. Lena entered from the side. Every head turned. The room went quiet. She took a position near the back, against the wall. Out of the way, but visible. Wallace cleared his throat. Good afternoon. For those who don't know me, I'm Deputy Director Marcus Wallace, Strategic Assessment Division. I'm here to provide context for recent events and clarify the operational purpose of Specialist Voss's presence at this installation. He clicked a remote. A presentation appeared on the main screen. 4 years ago, military leadership identified a critical gap in our operational readiness assessments. Traditional evaluations, inspections, reviews, simulations were producing inflated competency ratings. Units knew when they were being tested. They performed to expectations. But real combat doesn't announce itself. Real combat tests your instincts, your adaptability, your ability to function under unexpected pressure. Another slide. Charts, data, success rates. To address this gap, we created the Long Range Precision Assessment Program, LRPAP. The mission: embed highly trained specialists into active units under cover identities to evaluate real-world performance under realistic stress conditions. Hollis shifted. Lena could see his jaw working. Wallace continued. Specialist Lena Voss is one of 12 operatives in this program. Her assignment here was to assess your unit's tactical capability, leadership effectiveness, and adaptability to non-standard scenarios. Webb raised his hand. So the whole rookie act, that was fake? Wallace looked at Lena. Would you like to address that? She stepped forward. Not fake. Calculated. I needed to establish a baseline scenario where you perceived me as incompetent. That allowed me to observe how you responded to weakness, how you made judgments under pressure, and whether you could adapt when new information contradicted your assumptions. So you lied to us, Hollis said. I presented a scenario. You drew conclusions. I didn't correct them because doing so would have compromised the assessment. That's lying. That's methodology. Torres spoke up from the back. What about the shots you missed? On the range? Intentional. I was mapping environmental conditions, wind patterns, temperature gradients, atmospheric pressure variations. Every miss gave me data. By the time I needed to make a real shot, I had a complete environmental profile. And the shot at 3,200 meters, Pierce asked? That was my actual assignment. The assessment was secondary. The mission was real. The room processed that. Conversations bubbled up, overlapping. Wallace raised a hand. Let me be clear. Specialist Voss's performance has been exceptional. Her assessment of this unit's capabilities was thorough, accurate, and constructive. More importantly, her actions last night saved 200 civilian lives and neutralized a significant enemy threat. This unit should be proud. Proud? Hollis stepped forward. We should be proud that we got played? That we laughed at someone who was testing us the whole time? You should be proud that when it mattered, you adapted. That's the whole point. The point is we got manipulated. Wallace's expression hardened. Corporal, in combat, you will face deception constantly. Enemies who appear weak. Allies who seem strong. Scenarios that don't match expectations. If you can't adapt to unexpected variables, you will fail. Specialist Voss gave you a controlled version of that chaos. And you passed. That's worth more than your pride. Hollis looked at Lena. Is that how you see it? We're just test subjects? She met his eyes. No, you're soldiers, good ones. But you had blind spots. Everyone does. My job was to identify them and see if you could overcome them. And? You did. Eventually. Eventually. He shook his head. What if we hadn't? What if we'd written you off completely, never given you a chance to prove yourself? Then I would have noted it in my report and moved on. The assessment isn't about making you feel good. It's about identifying weaknesses before they get people killed. Cold. Realistic. Reyes stepped in. That's enough. Corporal, stand down. Hollis backed off, but his expression stayed hard. Wallace pulled up another slide. Specialist Voss's final report will be filed within 48 hours. Her findings will be classified but will inform future training protocols and deployment decisions. As of 1800 hours today, she'll be reassigned to her next evaluation. The room went quiet again. Different this time. Heavier. Webb spoke first. So she just leaves? After everything? That's the nature of the assignment. Doesn't seem right. It's necessary. Pierce looked at Lena. Where do you go next? I don't know yet. Wherever they send me. Another unit? Another test? Probably. And you do this over and over, forever. She didn't answer. Wallace closed his presentation. That concludes the briefing. Questions should be directed to Major Reyes. Dismissed. People filed out slowly, some glancing at Lena, others avoiding eye contact entirely. Hollis lingered near the door, waited until most people had left, then walked over. I'm still pissed, he said. I know. But I get it, sort of. He paused. You're good at what you do, really good. And I guess someone needs to do it. Doesn't make it easier. No, it doesn't. He extended his hand again. For what it's worth, you're one hell of a shooter, best I've ever seen. She shook his hand. You're not bad yourself. I'm adequate. She almost smiled. Yeah, you are. He left. Pierce was the last one out. He stopped beside her. You okay? Define okay. Not falling apart. Then, yeah, I'm okay. Wallace said next assignment. Any idea where? Could be anywhere. Europe, Middle East, Pacific, wherever they think a unit needs evaluation. And you just go. No say in it. That's the job. Sounds lonely. It is. He looked at her for a long moment. You ever think about doing something else? Getting out of the program, taking a normal posting? Sometimes. Why don't you? Because I'm good at this. And because the program works. Units improve. People live. That matters. Even if it costs you. She didn't answer. Pierce nodded slowly. Well, for what it's worth, you made us better, sharper, more careful. That's worth something. Thanks. And that shot last night, the one at 3,200 meters in the dark, with the wind, he shook his head. I'm going to be thinking about that for the rest of my life. It was just ballistics. No, it was art. He left. Lena stood alone in the operations center. The screen was still on, showing Wallace's final slide. Success rates. Mission outcomes. Statistical proof that the program worked. Cold numbers. Clean data. No mention of the cost. The isolation, the constant performance, the weight of always being tested, always being judged, never being known. She turned off the screen, walked out. At 16:30, Lena was packing her gear when Reyes appeared in the barracks doorway. Got a minute? The major asked. Sure. Reyes sat on the bunk across from her. Wallace left an hour ago, took his data and his conclusions. You'll get official orders by tonight. I figured. I read your preliminary report, the one you filed before last night. And? It was fair, tough, but fair. You identified real weaknesses, but you also noted strengths. That's more balanced than I expected. I don't grade on emotions, just observations. Still, Reyes leaned forward. I want to ask you something, off the record. Okay. Do you believe in what you're doing? Really believe it makes a difference? Lena set down the shirt she was folding. Yes. Units that go through this program perform better in combat. They question assumptions more. They adapt faster. They survive longer. The data proves it. But it's hard. On everyone. The people being tested don't like feeling manipulated, and the people doing the testing don't like being ghosts. So why keep doing it? Because someone has to, and because I'm good at it. She paused. You asked me earlier if I hate this job. I do, but I also believe in it, and I don't know how to reconcile those things. Reyes nodded. You know what I think? What? I think you're wasted in assessment. You should be operational, leading missions, training snipers, actually fighting instead of just testing. That's not my skill set. Bullshit. Last night proved you can lead under pressure, make impossible shots, save lives. That's operational. Last night was one mission. One mission where you did what 3 experienced soldiers couldn't. That's not luck, Voss. That's capability. Lena resumed packing. I appreciate that. But it doesn't matter what I think I should be doing. Wallace decides. The program decides. You could request reassignment. I could, but they'd deny it. The program needs assessors, good ones. I'm good at it, so they'll keep me there. Reyes stood. Well, for what it's worth, if you ever want a real posting, somewhere you can actually fight instead of just evaluate, you let me know. I'll make it happen. Thanks, Major. And Voss? Yeah? What you did here, the assessment, the missions, all of it, you made this unit better. I mean that. Whatever you write in your report, I want you to know it mattered. Lena looked up, met her eyes. That means a lot. Reyes left. Alone again, Lena finished packing. Rifle case, gear, notebook, everything that defined her professional existence. Her personal items fit in one small bag. Clothes, toiletries. A single book she'd read 3 times but couldn't throw away. That was it. That was her life. Tools and transients. At 17:45, her orders came through. Email, encrypted, short, report to FOB Meridian, 800, 6th of March. Assessment assignment. Duration, 4 to 6 weeks. Brief attached. She opened the brief. Another unit. Another mountain posting. Another group of soldiers who'd judge her, dismiss her, maybe eventually respect her. The cycle continued. At 1900, the unit threw an impromptu gathering in the mess hall. Not a party, exactly. Just people eating together, talking, processing the last few days. Lena almost didn't go, but Pierce knocked on her door, said it'd be weird if she didn't show, and she couldn't argue with that logic. When she walked in, conversations paused, then resumed. Awkward at first, then more natural. Webb waved her over to a table where he sat with Torres and a few others. Sit, he said. You eat yet? Not really hungry. Sit anyway. She sat. Torres pushed a plate toward her. Try the stew. It's less bad than usual. She picked at it. They were right. It was less bad. So, Webb said, next assignment. You know where yet? FOB Meridian. Another mountain posting. Same thing? Assessment? Yeah. And you're going to do the whole rookie act again? Miss shots, take notes, make people laugh at you? Probably. Man, he shook his head. That's brutal. It's the job. Still brutal. They ate in silence for a minute. Then Torres spoke. For what it's worth, you taught me something. Lena looked up. What? Don't trust first impressions. Look deeper. Ask questions. Because sometimes the person you think is weakest is actually the strongest. Webb nodded. Yeah, that. From across the room, Hollis raised his coffee mug. Not a toast, Just acknowledgement. Lena raised hers back. Pierce appeared with a tray, sat down beside her. You gonna keep in touch? Probably not. Security protocols. Right, classified. He paused. Well, if you ever get reassigned somewhere permanent, somewhere you can actually exist as yourself instead of a cover identity, let us know. I will. Liar. She almost smiled. Yeah. They finished eating. Conversations flowed around them. Normal, human, the kind of connection Lena rarely got to experience. At 20:30, she stood. I should get some sleep. Early transport tomorrow. Pierce stood too. I'll walk you out. They left the mess hall together, walked through the compound in comfortable silence. At the barracks, Pierce stopped. Hey, Voss. Yeah? That thing you do, the assessment, the testing, all of it, I get why it's necessary. But I also think it costs you more than it should. Maybe. No maybe about it. You're good at reading people, but you don't let people read you. That's lonely. Someone already told me that. Then maybe listen. She looked at him. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe, someday, you find a way to do this job without sacrificing yourself completely, because you're worth more than just being a tool the program uses. Thanks, Pierce. Mean it. I know. He nodded, started to leave, stopped. One more thing. That shot, the 3,200-meter one, how long you been able to make shots like that? Long time. Why? Because I've been doing this for 12 years, and I've never seen anything like it. And I'm wondering, if you can do that, what else can you do that we never saw? She didn't answer. Pierce smiled. Thought so. You're still holding back, even now. Always. That's sad. That's survival. He left. Lena went inside, lay on her bunk, stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, she'd leave. Board a transport. Fly to another base, start the cycle again. New faces, new tests, new lies. And somewhere in that process, she'd lose a little more of herself, become a little more ghost, a little less human. But the work mattered. The missions mattered. The lives saved mattered, even if no one would ever know the full truth of what she'd done or who she really was. She closed her eyes, tried to sleep, failed. Outside, the wind picked up again, howling across the compound, relentless, constant, like the job, like her life. Alone in the darkness, Lena Voss, expert marksman, classified operative, professional ghost, waited for morning, and wondered how many more times she could do this before there was nothing left of her to test. Morning came too soon. Lena woke at 500 to the sound of engines warming up outside. Her transport, right on schedule. She lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling one last time, then sat up, dressed, gathered her gear. The barracks was quiet. Most people were still asleep. A few early risers moved through their routines, pointedly not looking at her. The woman who'd tested them, the ghost who was leaving. She shouldered her pack, picked up her rifle case, walked to the door. Voss. She turned. Hollis stood near his bunk, fully dressed despite the early hour. Yeah? You didn't say goodbye. Wasn't planning to. Why not? Because goodbyes make it harder. He walked over, extended his hand. Well, I'm making it hard anyway. She shook his hand. His grip was firm, respectful. You changed something here, he said. In all of us. We're not the same unit you walked into 4 days ago. Good. Is it? We're more paranoid now, more suspicious. We question everything. That'll keep you alive. Maybe. Or maybe it'll make us hesitate when we shouldn't. Then you'll learn when to question and when to act. That's called experience. She paused. You'll be fine, Hollis. You're a good soldier. You just needed to remember that good isn't the same as right. What's the difference? Good is competence. Right is understanding. You were competent before I got here. Now you're starting to understand. He nodded slowly. Good luck out there, wherever they send you. You too. She left. Outside, the transport sat idling, a heavy cargo truck with canvas cover, exhaust billowing white in the cold air. The driver leaned against the cab, smoking, looking bored. Lena loaded her gear into the back, climbed in, sat on the hard metal bench. The driver finished his cigarette. climbed into the cab. The engine roared. They started moving. Lena watched through the open back as the compound receded. Buildings shrinking. People emerging for morning routine, small figures in the distance. Then they rounded a corner, and it was gone. Just mountains now, snow, empty road. She pulled out her notebook, flipped to the final page of her assessment. Everything was complete except one section, final recommendations. She stared at the blank space. What could she say that mattered? That the unit needed more scenario-based training? That they should challenge assumptions more aggressively? That competence wasn't the same as readiness? All true, all useful, all insufficient. Because the real recommendation, the one that mattered, couldn't be quantified in a report. Stop judging people by their worst moment. Start seeing potential in unexpected places. Remember that the quietest person in the room might be the most dangerous. And never, ever assume you know someone's capability until you've seen them under real pressure. She wrote none of that. Too personal, too emotional. Instead, she wrote, Unit demonstrates high technical competency with capacity for significant growth in observational discipline and adaptive response. Recommend continued operational deployment with emphasis on non-standard scenario training. Overall assessment, adequate with strong potential, professional, clean, meaningless. She closed the notebook, tucked it away. The truck hit a pothole. She grabbed the bench to steady herself. 3 hours to the airfield, then a flight to wherever FOB Meridian was, then the whole cycle again. New unit, new test, new lies, forever. She closed her eyes. Tried to sleep. Couldn't. The truck stopped. Not at the airfield. Somewhere else. Lena opened her eyes. They were pulled over on the side of the road, middle of nowhere, surrounded by trees and snow. The driver appeared at the back. Change of plans. What? Got orders to hold here. Someone's coming to meet you. Who? Didn't say, just said wait. He walked away, lit another cigarette. Lena climbed out of the truck, scanned the area. Nothing. Just empty road and forest. 5 minutes passed. Then she heard it. Another vehicle approaching from behind. A black SUV, government plates, moving fast. It pulled up beside the truck. Stopped. The back door opened. Deputy Director Wallace stepped out. Specialist Voss, he said. We need to talk. They walked into the trees. Away from the road. Away from the drivers. Wallace didn't speak until they were far enough that no one could overhear. I read your preliminary report, he said. And? It's thorough, professional, exactly what I expected from you. But it's incomplete. Lena frowned. I covered everything in the assessment parameters. I'm not talking about the assessment. I'm talking about you. She went still. I don't follow. Wallace stopped walking, turned to face her. 4 years? 12 assignments. Every report the same, cold, clinical, data-driven, no emotion, no personal insight, just observations and recommendations. That's the job. No, that's how you protect yourself. He paused. I've been running this program since it started. I know what it costs. The isolation, the constant performance, the weight of always being the outsider. I manage. You endure. There's a difference. He pulled out his own tablet, brought up a file. Your performance metrics are exceptional, top tier across every category, but there's something else I've been tracking, something the numbers don't show. What? You. He turned the screen toward her. Look at this. It was a graph, lines tracking upward over time, metrics she didn't recognize. Psychological resilience scores, Wallace explained. We track them for all operatives, measure stress responses, emotional stability, interpersonal effectiveness. Your scores have been declining for 18 months. Lena stared at the graph. The downward trend was subtle but consistent. I'm still operational, she said. You're still functional. That's not the same thing. He put the tablet away. Voss, you're one of the best we have. Maybe the best, but you're burning out. And if I don't do something about it, you're going to break. I'm fine. You're not, and lying about it doesn't help. She looked away. What do you want me to say? That it's hard? That I'm tired? That I hate pretending to be weak so I can watch people dismiss me? She turned back to him. I know all that. But the work matters, so I keep doing it. At what cost? Whatever it takes. Wallace shook his head. That's the answer of someone who's forgotten they're allowed to have limits. Limits get people killed. So does breaking yourself trying to be limitless. The words hit harder than she expected. She didn't respond. Wallace stepped closer. I'm pulling you from the next assignment. What? No, I'm fine. You're not. And I'm not risking you or the program by pushing you past your breaking point. He raised a hand, cutting off her protest. This isn't punishment, it's reassignment. To what? Instructor role, stateside. You'll train new assessors, teach them methodology, help them develop the skills you've mastered. I don't want to train people, I want to operate. You need a break, whether you admit it or not. And if I refuse, then I'll make it an order. He paused. Voss, you've given 4 years to this program. You've assessed 12 units. You've identified critical weaknesses that saved lives. You've earned the right to step back. I don't want to step back. I want to keep working. Why? What are you running from? The question landed like a punch. Lena turned away, stared at the trees, snow falling in lazy spirals. I'm not running, she said quietly. Then what do you call it? I call it doing my job, being useful, making a difference. By sacrificing yourself? By doing what I'm good at. Wallace came around to face her. You're good at a lot of things. Shooting, assessment, training, leadership. You don't have to limit yourself to one role. This is the role that needs me. No, this is the role you use to avoid being seen. He softened his voice. Voss, I know why you do this. You hide behind the assessment, behind the cover identities, behind the performance. Because if people don't know who you really are, they can't hurt you, they can't judge you, they can't expect things you can't deliver. That's not... It is. And it's eating you alive. She didn't respond. Couldn't. Because he was right. Somewhere along the way, maybe from the beginning, she'd stopped being Lena Voss and started being the assessment, the ghost, the tool. And she'd convinced herself that was enough. But it wasn't. It was just safer. Wallace pulled out an envelope, handed it to her. New orders, effective immediately. You're being reassigned to the Training Development Center in Virginia. 6-month rotation. After that, we'll reassess. If you want to go back to field assessment, we'll talk. But for now, you're done. Lena took the envelope, didn't open it. What if I'm not good at training? She asked. Then you'll learn, same way you learned everything else. He paused. And Voss, when you get there, try something new. What? Be yourself, not the cover identity, not the ghost, just you. See what happens. He started walking back toward the vehicles. Lena stood alone in the snow holding the envelope. Orders that would take her out of the field, out of the cycle, into something unknown. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt terrified, because being the ghost was lonely. But being herself? That was vulnerable. And she didn't know if she remembered how. The SUV left. The truck driver finished his cigarette and called out, "We heading to the airfield or what?" Lena looked at the envelope in her hand, then at the road ahead. "No," she said. "Change of destination." "Where to?" "Back to FOB Sentinel." The driver frowned. "That's an hour back the way we came." "I know." "You sure?" "Yeah, I'm sure." They loaded back into the truck, turned around, started driving. Lena pulled out her notebook, flipped to the final recommendation section, crossed out what she'd written, started over. This unit demonstrated exceptional adaptability when confronted with unexpected variables. Initial response patterns showed reliance on assumptions and surface-level observation. However, when challenged by non-standard scenarios, they adapted rapidly and executed at a high level. Key observations. Corporal Hollis, initially dismissive of perceived weakness, demonstrated significant growth in questioning assumptions and adapting to new information. Recommend leadership development training. Sergeant Pierce, strong observational skills with capacity for deeper analytical thinking. Excellent spotter. Recommend advancement to senior instructor roles. Unit cohesion, high. Trust built through shared experience rather than protocol. This is a strength. Final recommendation. This unit is ready for advanced operational deployment. They have moved beyond technical competency into adaptive capability. They question, they observe, they adapt. That's rare. Additional note, I came here to test them. They ended up testing me just as much. That's the mark of a unit worth keeping intact. She closed the notebook. Better, more honest, actually useful. The truck pulled back through the gates of FOB Sentinel at 0847. Soldiers were moving through morning routines. A few looked up as the truck passed. Confused, surprised. Lena climbed out, grabbed her gear. The driver shook his head. "You military people are weird." "Yeah, we are." She walked toward the operations center. Major Reyes was coming out, coffee in hand. She stopped when she saw Lena. "Voss, I thought you left." "I did. Changed my mind." "About?" "Everything." Lena set down her gear. "I need to talk to you and the unit. All of them." "About what?" "About the truth." Teat. 20 minutes later, the unit assembled in the operations center. Confused, curious, wary. Lena stood at the front. No presentation, no slides, just her. "I came back," she said, "because I owe you something I didn't give you before. Honesty." Hollis crossed his arms. "Thought the whole point was lying to test us." "It was, and that was necessary for the assessment. But the assessment's over. Now I want to tell you the parts I left out." "Like what?" Webb asked. Lena took a breath. "Like the fact that I hate this job. Not the shooting, not the missions, but the lying, the pretending, the watching people laugh at me while I collect data on them. I hate it." The room went quiet. "Then why do it?" Torres asked. "Because I'm good at it. Because it works. Because units that go through this process perform better, survive longer, save more lives." She paused. "But mostly because I didn't know how to do anything else. This program gave me purpose, and I convinced myself that was enough." Pierce leaned forward. "But it's not." "No, it's not." She looked around the room. "You all changed something in me. I came here to test you, to see if you could adapt. And you did. But in the process, you made me realize I've been hiding, using the job as an excuse to never let anyone actually know me." "And now?" Reyes asked. "Now I'm being reassigned, out of field assessment, into training roles. I'll be teaching new assessors how to do what I do, or what I used to do." "Used to?" Hollis said. "I'm done being a ghost. Done pretending. Done testing people from behind a mask." She pulled out her notebook. "I finished my report. The real one. Not the sanitized version I usually write. The one that tells the truth, that you're a good unit with real potential, and that you taught me as much as I taught you." She set the notebook on the table. "I wanted to come back and give you that in person, because you earned it, and because I needed to stop hiding behind protocols and actually acknowledge what happened here." Webb stood up. "So what happens now? You just leave again?" "Yeah, I leave. You stay. You keep training, keep questioning, keep getting better." She paused. "But this time I leave, knowing I gave you the truth. Not just data, the truth." Silence. Then Hollis stood, walked to the front, extended his hand. "Thank you," he said simply. She shook it. "For what?" "For coming back, for being honest, for treating us like people instead of test subjects." One by one, others stood. Webb, Torres, Pierce. The whole unit. Not applause, not celebration, just respect. Reyes stepped forward last. "You know, Voss, when you first got here, I thought you were a problem. Someone who'd disrupt my unit and leave chaos behind. And now? Now I think you're someone who disrupted assumptions and left clarity behind. That's better." She paused. "Good luck with the training assignment. I think you'll be better at it than you expect." "Thanks, Major." "And Voss? Next time you want to assess a unit, try asking first. Saves everyone a lot of confusion." Lena almost smiled. "I'll keep that in mind." She left for real at 1100. This time, half the unit came out to see her off. No ceremony, no speeches, just people standing in the cold, watching her load her gear. Pierce walked her to the transport. "You gonna keep in touch?" "Maybe, if they let me." "They will. You're moving to training, not Black Ops." He paused. "And Voss? When you get there, when you start teaching people how to do what you do, don't teach them to hide the way you did. Teach them to be honest." "Oh, that defeats the purpose of undercover assessment." "No, it makes it human." He smiled. "There's a difference between deceiving people and protecting yourself. You can do the job without sacrificing who you are." "I'll try." "Good." She climbed into the transport. The engine started. As they pulled away, she looked back one last time. The unit standing there, Hollis with his arms crossed, Webb waving, Torres nodding. Reyes watching with that expression commanders get when they know they're losing something valuable. And Pierce, just standing, present. The compound disappeared behind the trees. This time, Lena didn't feel empty. She felt lighter. The flight to Virginia took 9 hours. Long enough to think, to process, to start planning what came next, training new assessors, teaching methodology, passing on skills. But this time, she'd do it differently. She'd teach them the technical aspects, how to read people, how to map conditions, how to execute under pressure. But she'd also teach them the cost, the isolation, the weight of always performing, and she'd teach them how to stay human while doing it, because someone needed to. The plane landed at 2200. Lena grabbed her gear, walked through the terminal. A driver was waiting with her name on a sign. "Specialist Voss? That's me? Welcome to TDC. I'll take you to your quarters." The training development center was smaller than she expected. Clean, modern, almost comfortable. Her room was private, actual walls instead of barracks. A real bed, a desk, a window overlooking trees instead of mountains. She set down her gear, sat on the bed, stared at the wall. For the first time in 4 years, she wasn't deploying to a new unit, wasn't preparing a cover story, wasn't getting ready to be dismissed and mocked and tested. She was just here, being herself. It felt strange and terrifying and oddly hopeful. Her phone buzzed. Email from Major Reyes. "Voss, your report was the best assessment I've read in 20 years. Honest, clear, actually useful. Command approved all your recommendations. We're implementing new training protocols next month. More importantly, you left something behind. Hollis is questioning everything now, in a good way. Pierce is developing junior snipers with an emphasis on observation over mechanics. Webb is taking initiative instead of waiting for orders. The whole unit is sharper. That's your legacy here. Not the test. Not the lies. The growth. If you ever need a reference for anything, training assignment, operational posting, or just someone to vouch for you being more than your file suggests, you call me. Major Elena Reyes." Lena read it twice, then saved it. Legacy. She'd never thought about that before, never considered that she was leaving something behind besides data and disruption. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the real work wasn't the assessment, it was what happened after. The questions people started asking, the assumptions they stopped making, the growth that came from being challenged. She pulled out her notebook, flipped to a blank page, wrote, "Training objectives for new assessors," then stopped. Thought about Pierce's advice, about Wallace's concern, about Reyes's respect, about the person she'd been versus the person she could become. She crossed out what she'd written, started over. How to assess units without losing yourself. 1. The job is important. You are also important. Remember both. 2. Deception is a tool, not an identity. Use it. Don't become it. 3. People will laugh at you. Let them. But remember you're testing assumptions, not collecting insults. 4. The data matters. So do the people. Both can be true. 5. When the mission's over, be honest. Not just professional. Honest. 6. You're allowed to connect, to care, to let people see you. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. 7. Being a ghost is lonely. Being yourself is scary. Pick scary. She looked at what she'd written. It wasn't a training manual. It was a reminder to herself. She closed the notebook, set it on the desk. Tomorrow, she'd start teaching, building a program that created better assessors. People who could do the job without losing themselves in the process. People who could test units and stay human. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be worth it. Outside, snow started falling, soft, gentle. Nothing like the vicious wind of the mountains. Lena stood at the window, watched it come down. Somewhere, another unit was training. Another soldier was being dismissed for seeming weak. Another assumption was being made that would need to be challenged. And somewhere, a new assessor would be deployed to handle it, but not her. Not anymore. She'd done her time in the field, earned her scars, learned her lessons. Now it was time to teach those lessons without demanding others pay the same price she had. Time to build something instead of just testing it. Time to be Lena Voss. Not the ghost, not the assessment, just herself. Flawed, tired, human, and ready. 6 months later, the first class of new assessors graduated. 8 people, each one trained in methodology, observation, and execution. But more importantly, trained in humanity, in staying present, in connecting even while deceiving. Lena stood at the back of the ceremony, watching them receive their assignments, watching them prepare to deploy. One of them, a young specialist named Chen, approached her after. "Ma'am, I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For teaching us that we don't have to choose between doing the job and being ourselves, that both matter." Lena nodded. "Remember that when it gets hard, because it will. People will laugh at you. You'll question whether it's worth it, and you'll be tempted to hide behind the role. What do I do then?" "You remember that the job is temporary, but who you are is permanent. Don't sacrifice the permanent for the temporary." Chen smiled. "Yes, ma'am." She walked away. Joined her classmates, ready to deploy. Lena watched them go. They'd make mistakes, struggle, question themselves. But they'd also grow, adapt, become better than she'd been at their age, because she'd taught them what she'd learned the hard way. That assessment wasn't about manipulation. It was about illumination. Showing people what they couldn't see, challenging what they thought they knew, creating space for growth, and doing it without losing yourself in the process. Behind her, Wallace appeared. "Good class. They're ready. Thanks to you." He paused. "I'm reassigning you again." "Already?" "Operational role this time. Lead sniper instructor. You'll train advanced long-range specialists. No assessment, no cover identities. Just teaching people to shoot the way you do." Lena considered it. "No more ghost work?" "Not unless you want it." "I don't." "Then it's settled." He handed her new orders. "Congratulations, Master Sergeant Voss. You've earned the promotion." She looked at the papers. "Master Sergeant, lead instructor, permanent posting, a real role, or a real identity, a real future." "Thank you, sir." "Thank yourself. You did the work." He started to leave, stopped. "And Voss, that unit at FOB Sentinel, they still talk about you. Reyes says you changed their whole operational culture." "They changed me too." "Good. That's how it should work." He left. Lena stood alone in the empty auditorium, new orders in hand. New chapter beginning. She thought about the mountains, the cold, the wind, the impossible shots, the people who'd laughed at her, then respected her, then learned from her, the person she'd been when she arrived, hollow, isolated, hiding, and the person she'd become, still flawed, still learning, but present, real, herself. It had taken 4 years, 12 assignments, countless lies and lonely nights, but she'd finally learned the most important lesson. You can't help people grow if you're not willing to grow yourself. You can't test others without being tested, and you can't save people by sacrificing who you are. The work mattered, but so did she. Both could be true. Both had to be true. Outside, the sun was setting, gold light spilling across the training grounds where tomorrow's soldiers would learn to shoot, adapt, and survive. Lena walked out into it. No longer a ghost, no longer hiding, just a soldier, a teacher, a person, imperfect, honest, present, and finally, after all these years, actually herself. 3 years later, Corporal Drake Hollis stood on a frozen ridge, watching a new soldier miss shot after shot on the range below. The recruit looked frustrated, embarrassed, ready to quit. The other soldiers were starting to laugh. Hollis raised his hand. The laughter stopped. "Everyone hold position," he called out, then walked down to where the recruit stood. "Rough day?" he asked. The recruit nodded. "I can't hit anything, Corporal. I don't know what I'm doing wrong." Hollis looked at the targets, at the wind, at the way the recruit was gripping the rifle. Then he thought about a small woman who'd walked into his unit years ago, who'd missed every shot, who'd let them laugh, who'd taught them the most important lesson they'd ever learned. "Tell me something," Hollis said. "Are you actually trying to miss? Or are you learning something we're not seeing yet?" The recruit blinked. "What? No, I'm struggling." "Okay, then let's figure out why. Not by dismissing you, by observing, by asking questions, by looking deeper than surface performance." He helped the recruit adjust stance, breathing, sight picture. "Try again. And remember, one bad day doesn't define you. What you do after the bad day, that's what matters." The recruit nodded, fired, hit, small victory, but a start. As they walked back up the ridge, the recruit asked, "Why'd you help me? Everyone else was laughing." Hollis smiled. "Because someone once taught me that the quietest person in the room might be the most dangerous, and that you never know someone's capability until you give them a real chance to prove it." "Who taught you that?" "A ghost who learned to be human and changed everything because of it." Never underestimate the quiet one, because the moment you do, you've already lost. But more than that, never underestimate your own capacity to change, to grow, to see past assumptions and discover truth. Real strength isn't proving you're right, it's staying open to being wrong. And the most dangerous person in any room isn't the one who seems strongest. It's the one who stays curious, observes deeply, and never stops learning.